$80 million that we have will be right in the ballpark for that. We are going to continue raising money, private funds, for that. We've done that across the state. We feel really good about where we are right now with the most recent allocation for the state of North Carolina. I will also say that there's some of our pledges of that $13 million remain uncollected, and that's because they're over time. But we've got a 98.6% collection rate, so we feel really good about those pledges coming in from the private sector. Next, I want to talk a little bit about what we are and what we are not. In the last 10 years, you've heard and heard an awful lot about what we're going to do or not going to do. The biggest thing I think we have to point out is this is a state-owned and operated facility. The Museum of the Cape Fear on the top of the hill is a regional state museum. This is going to be a major state museum. The state will fund it, and from the day that it opens, they will maintain it. Just don't kid ourselves. You know better than anyone else, this is not a wealthy county. And I wouldn't be involved in a project like this if I had come to you and say, we're going to need millions of dollars every year to operate. The beauty of this process is that once we open this, and we've now got the lion's share of the money in hand to make this happen. Every year, the estimates are $20 million in economic impact for the region. So what we're talking about is once it's built, we won't have to fund it. It will raise funds to take care of all those problems that you all deal with every day. I know what I read, and I realize the shortages that you face, and I realize the need out there in this community. So we're excited about being able to help with that. The other thing is that has come up, two other things, is content and the name. As you know, we changed the name from its original name when we first came to you. It was the North Carolina Civil War History Center. Input from our advisory board, we changed the name to the North Carolina Civil War and Reconstruction History Center. We've had some more questions about wanting to change that name one way or the other. We've been clear from the very beginning that while there's a small group of us locally who've ramrodded this effort, this is a state museum. The North Carolina Historical Commission has ultimate say-so about what happens with this museum. We went up as late as a month ago and met with the Director of Natural and Cultural Resources and talked to him about the concerns with the name. They are entertaining an addition, a change to the name at this point. I'm a civilian, I don't work for the state, so I can't tell you any more than they are looking at a name change, but it is their decision. It is not ours. We took some suggestions from our advisory board. We took some suggestions from the city who said they wanted to talk about additions or deletions to the name. We openly have said from the very beginning, we'll take any suggestions from the state of North Carolina we would like. So they're right now looking at that. The second handout I gave you has 4 people on it. Those are a sample of the historians that are actually dealing with the content of the museum. We have about 25 historians involved. These are the leaders. These are the people that are putting together the rest of the historians. And these are people that are well known throughout the country who've written more than all of us put together and are experts in this period. So again, it's very flattering for everybody to think that the 3 of us are coming up with this name, the 3 of us are going to come up with this content. I don't know anything about the content. That's not my place. The historians in the state of North Carolina and the North Carolina Historical Commission are in charge of that. So they are working on that diligently. You know, I like to tell people that when we first came to you, when we first came to the city, we first came to the state, and had this crazy idea that we were going to get this funding, we were going to make this happen. I think a lot of people voted or said, yeah, that's fine, go ahead. Game changed a little bit about a month ago when we finally got a budget in the state of North Carolina, and we can now walk in with $59.5 million. So we're taking it, we were always taking it seriously, but I think funding sources and other people are beginning to take it seriously. Let's get this right. You know, really, I don't want to downplay $59.5 million, but the hard part is now, and that's getting it right. Making sure we have the content and everything else right. One other thing that's come up, and I mentioned this when I was with you last time, but I want to clear this up. We are not going to have monuments on this site. We've never planned on having monuments. We were actually asked by the state at one point, please take all these monuments we don't know what to do with. This is an historical center. We're not dealing with monuments. We're dealing in history here. So just to clear that up, because it's come out several times that this is where we're going to put a bunch of monuments and everything else. It's not going to happen. All right? The last thing I want to talk about is where we go from here. Like I told you, it sounds really good that, hey, we've got all this money lined up and everything else. We are in the process of going back to our architect and having them do a new cost redo. The last one, as I said, we had was March of 2019. Prices have gone up, you know that better than I do. This is why we're here talking back to you, and we're going to go see the city, is we need a commitment, a recommitment on your part and their part, in the fact that if we don't know how much we have, we can't ask the accountant to do the numbers, because we'll have to rearrange things. So that's why that brings us here. The second part of the commitment, the need for the commitment, is that we're going to our funders. And 7-8 years ago, when we went to the head of Wachovia Foundation and again talked about this wonderful plan we had, it was kind of just this crazy idea. You guys aren't going to get this done. Now that we're on the verge of getting it done, your commitment means the world to the process. The fact that the city and the county are on board on this process shows that we're all behind this. The state's obviously on board now to the tune of about $65 million. So that's it. We have to get construction documents done. We figure that process will be somewhere around 12 months. Once we get the rest of the commitments lined up, it'll be about 12 months. So in a perfect world, we would break ground the second half of 2023 on the main building. In a perfect world, we would complete the project in 2025. Now, just yesterday, I met with a construction guy, and he pointed out what you all know, of course, because you do this a whole lot more than I do, that curtains for the building are 2 years back ordered. Not our building, because we haven't priced those out yet, but he said it's a process now that's kind of crazy. So I tell you those dates in hopes of completion in 2025 is kind of out of our hands, but we hope that the supply issues come together. That's a quick brief. I was told to be short, so I'd be glad to entertain any questions or anything else. Thank you.
Any commissioner have a question, comment?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Evans.
Hey there, thank you for coming out.
Glad to be here.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it. I'm sure that our newest commissioner is glad to hear it as well. The paper said you had the 3 individuals that you spoke with in regards to completing this project. The ones that added their advice and their expertise with the doctors that you have here.
Which 3 individuals? I'm sorry.
1, 2, 3.
Well, I have four of the 25.
Okay.
I just put, those are the leaders of this group, which will help recruit the rest of the 25. Anybody new or whatever. Yes, sir.
Okay, you also have another committee as well.
We have it. Well, the board has, the foundation has an advisory committee, and it has a local committee. Yes.
If I could ask, who's on the board?
There's like 30 people on the board.
Is it how many?
About 30 people on the state advisory board. Most of those are historians or scholars in the state end.
Is there anyone on the county board of commissioners on the board?
No, sir. There was a while back when we first started, but not anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Haley. I'll tell you, thank you for your presentation, and thank you, Ms. Bryant, and Ms. Scott for coming, and keep us updated.
I will. Thank you very much. We appreciate everything.
Thank you. Now the manager that will take us to 3B.
Yes, sir. And if
Mr.
I,
Gibson.
well, come on up.
And you can introduce the item.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. So I have been contacted several times by the Local Government Commission about finding ways to provide assistance to the town of Spring Lake as they rebuild their finances. And one of the areas that they were interested in were any partnerships or collaboration with the town regarding their Parks and Recreation program. They are not a part of our consolidated city and county program. And so with that, Tracy and I started having discussions with Michael. And at that point, the discussion started first with just the Local Government Commission. This was before the election. And so this week, Michael went to the town to allow the board members to ask Michael questions about what it may look like, how we already operate as a combined city and county parks and recreation program. We have had discussions with Mr. Moorfield that if we were going to move this forward, what would that look like? And so we are very in the early stages of this, but the town council had asked, they had questions they wanted to ask Mr. Gibson. So today I thought it might be helpful for Mr. Gibson to talk a little bit about what it could look like as we move forward, if the board desire, if we can work all of it out to move forward.
That was very good, Amy. Any questions?
Oh, yeah, that's quick, but not that quick.
I appreciate the commissioners to come up and talk about this. Over the past couple of years, really since 2006, when the district was created and Fayetteville Cumberland came into existence, there has been tremendous amounts of economy of scale and how we have operated parks and recreation throughout the county. There's been some great movement, and just the economy of scale gives everybody, all the citizens who are in the district, an opportunity to have great recreations in their communities, outside of their communities, as a countywide program. And when we were approached by Spring Lake to come in and start, crunching some numbers to see how it would work and see how we would provide services throughout that end of the county, we've come up with what we believe could be a reasonable, at-cost program where they would benefit by just being in the district and being able to take part in the economy of scale. Their employees, there would be no jobs lost. They had some vacancies, we just wouldn't fill those. The ability to purchase programs, purchase items for parks and recreation would just be passed on, the buying power, the ability to take advantage of man hours, just the regular operations, and they would probably save a considerable amount of money by coming into the district. They seem to be very receptive in that proposal, and that's been their request. They had a consensus to bring that forward to the county commissioners, to County Amy Cannon, and then see where that went at. And it was a very good meeting. They look like a group of people who are elected that want to make Spring Lake a thriving community. So from a recreational standpoint, making sure all citizens have that ability. We've always had a relationship with Spring Lake, even before the district was created, just like we have with other parts of the county. So from a recreation standpoint, we would do our best to make sure that they profited from becoming a district. Any questions?
Commissioner Key.
Yes, sir.
What is the status of the recreation program right
When you say they have one,
now? Okay?
it operates.
It started. Are the kids being serviced? At
Not-
the level that we are here right now?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, obviously, in the town of Spring Lake, they fund that through their tax base.
Yes, sir.
Okay? So the surrounding areas outside of Spring Lake pay a recreational fee.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is the idea that Spring Lake would just pay to the Cumberland Parks and Recreation what they have been paying in the past, or?
There would be an adjustment. They pay a certain amount of pennies now. Because they would come into the district, that would reduce those pennies. But it would fully operate their organization, just like every other organization that's in the district. One of the things that has happened for the years in the past, they still have Manchester on the other side of Spring Lake. That money would then come back into the district to fund all of that outside. So it would not cost the district to bring them in.
When you say the district, you mean the entire district?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's at the level of recreation that they're doing now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you want to enhance that.
And we would be able to.
My only concern is the funding.
Yes, sir.
Michael, you were here when
I
we went together,
I
okay?
understand.
And the funding and economies of scale were things that were spoke at those meetings.
Yes, sir.
And my thing is for the kids, that they're getting a high level, but at the same time, you still have to fund that through the county, Fayetteville Parks and Recreation. Are we going to be having excess funding that we're gonna need to be putting into Spring Lake? Or is the ask more from Spring Lake to fund a more high-end program?
Well, let me be delicate here.
Let's start now.
One of the blessings is that because of the times that we're in now, they have some allocations that have come from the state that would cause them, if properly administered, would cause them to be brought back to that level without any stress.
Okay, that was delicate. Last question. Our relationship with Hope Mills, which could be, Spring Lake and Hope Mills could be considered the same because they're
Yes.
sister townships. At one time, Hope Mills was by themselves. Are they still?
They're still by themselves.
Oh, okay. All right. So would you feel comfortable if Hope Mills saw this program, that we would have the same program for the Hope Mills folks? Because fair and equitable is what usually comes to this board.
If able to see the same kind of financial participation, we got smart people, we could probably figure that out.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Keith, I serve on a committee out in Hope Mills.
You saw all the committees.
Mayor Warren asked me to come out there. I would tell you that they probably would not be looking to come into our parks and rec. They're finna build their aquatic center, they're finna change their golf course. So I don't know just to kind of, I don't think that's gonna be an issue. Commissioner Booth.
Yeah, my questions are very similar. I know it's 50 years ago, but between College Lakes, Kenwood, and Spring Lake, like Holly Hills and stuff, that's kind of where I grew up in the Pine Forest area. And there used to be a very vibrant, I mean, they were very competitive and very, they had actually little tryouts and stuff. There were so many kids and so many programs. Have we kept track, or is in the last 3 or 5 years, are the same levels of sports being offered? Is there a drop-off in enrollment because of what's offered, or is there a drop-off in what's being offered because no one's signing up? I know when there used to be actually a back gate to Fort Bragg from Poe, and it was actually a very busy thoroughfare. Just off-base kids were there, were very, very, very involved. I mean, everybody come around trying to cherry-pick the Fort Bragg and Hope Air Force Base military kids for the football teams. And so you see coaches out there at the little peewee level watching the kids and asking how long their dad is going to be stationed at a Poe. So
That hadn't changed.
okay, well, good. That's what I'm wondering about is I don't hear about Spring Lake Raiders or something winning the rec league 12 and under football or something. I just haven't heard that. So I don't know if we're still offering it or if they're still offering it, but it's not being participated, or it's the other way around. Is it they're cutting programs because no one's signing up for them? I mean, it's like the chicken or the egg.
There definitely has been a drop-off. We've always worked with them. If they didn't have enough kids to participate or have a team, then they would come into the College Lakes District and play there if they had 10 or 12. That has happened. They have the levels have been lowered. I definitely believe that if they are allowed to come in, that'll change, and that'll go back to being able to provide.
Okay. I'm as optimistic as you.
Thank you.
I think Commissioner Council and I went out there, about 5 years ago, to look at the water of them joining our Parks and Rec, and that didn't go anywhere. They do now have a new board. Just about everybody's new except for one, that Ms. Cooper who came on there. So I think that's a good idea to have that conversation with them. I would ask the board that as we go forward, that the chair and the vice chair kind of engage in that conversation and bring back to the board along with the manager. That's just it, and just consensus, not necessarily a vote on that. So we can make sure we have those questions answered that we put forward. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. Everybody nod. Nod.
He's not
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. And tell Mac I was briefed.
Thank you so very much. All right. That takes us to the consideration Agenda items with, Madam Manager, the first one is a request for proposals.
Yes, sir. I'm going to ask our Director of Infrastructure and Engineering, Jermaine Walker, to come forward. This is a report back to the Board of Commissioners about an owner's representative for the county's multipurpose event center.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
On November 5th, the staff solicited a request for proposal for the Cumberland County, at least what we call the Cumberland County Multipurpose Event Center. We provided a space for questions and answers and written responses, and we provided answers to all those questions back by addendum with the period closing on November 12th. All submissions were due no later than 5 p.m. on December 3rd. The county received 3 high-quality responses from MVP Carolinas, Legends Project Management, and Violet Crown Management, LLC. We established an internal selection committee comprised of members from county management, engineering, and finance. And we also had participation from industry experts, Mr. Trent Merritt and Mr. Seth Bernalt, who provided technical expertise and advice in a consulting capacity. We started evaluation on December 6th, developed an initial ranking, and moved forward with in-person interviews. We conducted those interviews December 16th and 17th. December 20th, we narrowed those down to the final 2. And then we conducted follow-up virtual interviews December 23rd. On January 5th, the selection committee convened and further evaluated each candidate, and we made the determination that MVP Carolinas was the selection with a possible score, highest possible score out of 500 points, receiving 407 points. Today we have Mr. Matthew Silver, Mr. Kevin Lugo from MVP, who will do a brief presentation to the board about the overview of the project, and then I'll come back before you.
Well, first, are there any questions?
Yeah, any questions?
About what the process that has been described by Mr. Walker?
Are they signed?
Pardon me?
Are they signed?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. So,
Okay, I'm trying to figure out where we're going, because we haven't even voted on the request for proposal.
No.
And I don't know if they present them. Okay, so I got the same question.
So here's where we are. So we have brought the process forward. Nothing has been signed. This is our staff recommendation.
Right.
We thought this is a important project for the county and the community, and it's an important decision. The owner's representative will provide a key role from day one through closeout of the project. We wanted to provide MVP an opportunity to do a short presentation for the board to ask questions, and then we can come back at another date, or you can decide today. Well, it's certainly up to you, but we felt like you should meet our recommendation. But no, nothing has been moved forward.
So I guess the question I would ask, what happened to the other people? Did you tell them no, or they still there? Because if they're not there, if we've gone through the process, and I guess we either trust staff or don't trust staff on the RFP process, because he just explained the whole process and everybody that was there, and I think that's a great cross-section of all the people. Have they tried to sell themselves to us, or I mean, I don't understand. We never do this on RFP as to why.
Well, I think this process, this is the largest project we will have done in over 20 or 25 years. And so, yes, you're right, Mr. Chairman, the approach is different. The other firms know that we have not entered into a contract. They know that their place in the process, but they know that a final decision has not been made.
So I guess my question would be, and I don't know the point ranking, because he only told me the point ranking for this particular group. I don't know if the other one was 2 points off, 3 points off?
371.
Okay. And so I guess, and the board can decide whether we get into allowing the process, not doing that one group out of however many, I don't know if that was in the process, get to present to sell themselves and nobody else does. I mean, so I mean, either we like the process and go with your proposal and recommendation, or we get into the ability of inviting the top 3, top 2. And I don't think that that's what we want. Madam Manager, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I think that.
And I'm not either. I was given direction to move this forward
Right,
as
that's
fast
right.
as possible. And I thought I was following the process that the board wanted. And so, again, we've narrowed it down, and so we can certainly bring in as many firms as you would like to talk with.
Well, mine's not that. Mine is that either we trust the staff. I mean, you made the recommendation on our request for proposals. You know, we don't do that on any of the rest of them. So if y'all are making a recommendation, you give your information, we either vote yes or no.
Yes, sir.
And then we either start the process over or we go with whatever's
Yes,
here.
sir.
Because we don't do the day-to-day. That's you all. And so we set policy, we tell you kind of where we want to be, but then you all do this kind of work and bring it to us and say, based upon what we've done in the committee that we set up, this is our recommendation, and then we say yay and nay. Mr. Evans, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. And you know what, and you're absolutely right, we do trust staff in a number of things. But I think in a project that's as large as this, I think we need to hear from just one, more than just one outfit.
You done? Oh, I didn't.
I was talking to Commissioner Booth.
Hi there. Well, okay, thank
I'm
you.
putting on my table, and I got her over here too.
But wait,
I'm
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
even with that, if the process does go that way, where you hear more from more than one, we still need to expedite it as fast as possible.
And without understanding the schedule, we really need to expedite this.
Okay.
There is some urgency, but we can, but this step is important.
Commissioner Booth.
Well, that's what I'm saying, I agree with Commissioner Evans, for the reason you said, this is the first thing in 25 years, and having raised at least 5 kids, it's like that game of telephone. You've heard us say what we want, and then you've told it to somebody, and you listed like 8 or 9 people. Did they get what we said by the time it went through 6 or 7 people? So they may be bringing what the last person that talked to them said, and then he or she says, they're bringing what you told me, and you go, okay, they're bringing what you told me, and we get all around here, and they tell the board, they go, this is what the board saw, and we're going, there wasn't a water
So that's a
feature to
good
it.
question. We relied on the feasibility study. Remember the feasibility study that the board procured through Spectra? So the feasibility study was the basis, and that was sent to each and every one that responded to the RFP. And the feasibility study, as you may recall, after it was presented to board members, there were changes made to the feasibility study to incorporate it so that was a document that brought together community feedback and Board of Commissioners feedback.
At our little post-it thing out at the health department, we had 7, and each board member was assigned a specific post-it task. Who was the commission that was assigned the Coliseum or the Art Center, and did he or she participate in any way, shape, or form?
No.
I think I was on the facilities, I guess that's the one I had, which was the buildings and the maintenance plan.
Well, why did we do that then?
But none of us have ever been on the RFP. I mean, we just, I mean, that's not what, I guess,
But we were assigned a job to monitor it and write it in, and everybody got, countywide water or homelessness or something like that, and so that's the thing, and then you just leave that person out in the, 4 stories away.
I'm gonna go to Commissioner Keith, and then I'll tell you why we did the committees, but.
Okay, there's a lot of talking, and everybody has the same positive intent here.
That's right.
But the project, this is a potential $80 million project. It can be very political as it goes down to the thing. So it's important that we have involvement. And Chairman has adopted a committee to look at this, and I think that's a very smart move. We've had committees on other big projects that we've gone through, and it seemed to be good. And with no disrespect to anybody, I think this is too important just to be relegated to the staff. There has to be confidence all the way around. And you guys have done a great job getting us to where we are. And I apologize to the group that's here if they're getting scared right now, but it's not that intent. Trent Merritt came to us a while ago and he said, these projects can get delayed many times because of political reasons, not construction reasons, not any other reasons at all. And so that, I think it's important that a committee works with this in this election.
Commissioner Council.
I thought that was already in place.
Yeah, the committee is. I guess you said he had
And
purpose.
everything. And I was wondering, because all of this information was sent to us in our packet.
Okay, well, yeah, if I could just
I'm going ahead and look up here then if you got a question. As soon as she finishes, I'm going to Commissioner Stewart.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Stewart.
I agree with Commissioner Adams. Either we're going to trust staff or we're not going to trust them. I do also believe that with a project this large, we need to have more than just, if we're not going to trust staff, if we say run it by us, then we need to have more than one. But I put the responsibility on us because staff went and did what they thought they were supposed to do. We gave them direction on what to do. At that time, somebody should have stood up and said, I need to be a part of this, whoever's assigned to that committee, I want to be a part of this. And if something is big, then, okay, include a commissioner, but it falls back on us. It's our responsibility because staff went and did what we directed them to do.
Well, and I can tell you, I'm not opposed to moving this part forward because this part is the RFP for this that the staff did. But after that is where the committee comes into play in terms of moving this project forward to be able to do that. I think even if a commissioner has stood up, we still wouldn't have been in on the RFP. We're never in on the RFP. I mean, we have some discussion about what we want to see, which is the scope of work, and I think we told them what the scope of work was. Then after that, I think Commissioner Keith, I think you on that committee and somebody else on that committee, that's where now that work begins, that the commissioners in there driving that train down the road. I think we got one for Graves Creek, we got one for the multi-purpose, we already got one for the homeless. So, you know, and I think this is in terms of having the consultants and Spectrum and the county, that this was looked at well better, more than any of our expertise that we'd be able to do. And I think at least on this one is to move it forward. Mine was, I didn't think that we've ever done this, and it was we're going to get in the habit of bringing people in on requests for proposals. I don't think you want to move down that road, Madam Manager. That was my whole thing in terms of that. If that's the board's desire, you know, but I don't think that we've ever done that and that we want to start getting into that. Because again, it falls back on staff. If the recommendation didn't come in good from the group that you put together, then that's where we come in. So with that, I'm not trying to take care of anything, Commissioner.
Well, I'm still concerned about why do we volunteer our time to do something and then just get snubbed on it? You know, that's what I'm saying. I don't know, does anyone remember who was the?
I think it was you.
Yeah, I think it was you. And I didn't hear one word from anybody about this meeting going anywhere. My office is across the street, and I'm self-employed.
But we would have never done an RFP, Mike. I'm just saying, we never called in.
Well, then why did we waste a weekend out there at the health department doing the little Post-its and everything, and then everybody had to be assigned one? There were 7 top things, and everybody had to be assigned one to do something. So I said, okay, I'm the Performing Arts Center. I've been to the DPAC 3 times. I have a guy ready to come speak to us who's done 23 projects in North and South Carolina for free. He'll come talk to us and tell us what we need, and he won't even put his name in for it as the owner's representative, but he'll tell us what we need for free. And I wasn't asked about that at all. He's also an emeritus member of the PNC and the DPAC. He's been around so long in here in North Carolina.
And I guess,
I would have been able to give that little information if someone had just dialed my phone number. So that's what I mean. And this is like, bringing the car in that you've chosen for your child, no matter what they want, you're going to tell them this is it. I mean, we're going to look at a Ford. We may want a Chevy if we've been able to look at the Ford and the Chevy, but we're going to see the presentation by the Ford is better than what we've got right now, which is nothing. So we're going to say, Ford it is. So I agree with you. I don't think we ought to have the presentation on the only candidate and then see if we like the only presentation given to us. What kind of outcome do you think is going to happen there?
that was my problem.
Yeah, I agree with
So
you.
I think you vote whether we want to do the RFP, and based upon the information that was sent to you, that we reviewed, and that the committee did, that the staff did, on that, and then move it to the committee to move forward on this project.
I'm ready to move forward.
I'm ready.
Well, you want to make a motion?
I
You wanna make a
didn't
motion?
express it well.
You want to make a motion?
I want to make a motion. Lord, now I'm fumbling. I can't pull my mask off. Still I can't hear.
It's the selection of
My
MVP,
motion is that we follow the process
the owner's representation for the Cumberland County Multipurpose Event Center.
and that we've already,
Authorize the committee that was formed to negotiate the contract with MVP once it's approved by legal.
that's my motion, and I don't think it's gonna take to Easter for legal to send it back to us. So we can still have a groundbreaking game. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Is the motion as recommended in the agenda packet, or were you adding that the committee formed will negotiate?
It's down at the bottom. If you look down there, it says authorize the committee to negotiate. That's all up under that
I
recommendation.
missed that, thank you.
Yes,
very
ma'am.
much.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and second. Anybody else got any questions?
This is going to the committee.
Yes.
It's
No.
not-
It would approve the RFP, and then the RFP would then go to, and the process will move to the committee.
Wait,
Commissioner Evans.
So we're gonna approve the RFP with the discussion that we just had, then go to the committee, and the committee is to do what?
The motion was to negotiate the contract with the people that we chose and then move the whole multi-purpose along toward completion.
So what we're saying now is what goes to the committee is the people that we have chosen, which is these individuals that are here.
Right.
it was a recommendation.
That was their recommendation, but that was her motion.
Recommendation.
But that's her motion. I'll approve that recommendation. And then it moves forward with the committee to negotiating with, in terms of staff, like we do the 911, the art, and all the other committees. And on that committee, I think I don't remember who I put on that committee.
Jeanette's the chair, Charles and I.
Yeah, there you go. So the three to one.
I feel good about that committee.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. If there's no other questions, all of those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, but it just doesn't seem right to me to vote on something and send it to a committee after the decision has been made.
Well, it's not that, it's to do the contract, but continue the whole project. It's not just this, it's the whole project.
I agree.
That committee does the project.
The committee should make the recommendation.
Well, I understand what happened is, and that would have been the proper way to do it, Commissioner Keith, except for we had staff go ahead and start the process before we did the committee. Committee wasn't even formed at that time, except for Mr. Booth, is the one man. You know, all those in favor of the
It don't
motion?
sound like that anymore.
I got a question.
Oh, we got a question.
I understand that we asked for this to be done very quickly.
Yes.
What timeframe what timeframe restraint are we under?
We need to, the current facility closes in 2025. We need to issue debt in 2024, and that time frame is extremely short when you think about the visioning process we need to do. We need to determine the location, hire an architect, engineer. There's a lot to do, and it is a very short window.
Okay, Jermaine was putting up figures, not to me, but to somebody else. Were you giving timeframe as well?
I think, and I can ask,
I just think, I've given them the generic timeframe. I've given them the generic timeframe. And if you may recall, I asked specifically, and at the commit, when this went from the agenda session to the commissioners meeting, I was told to bring back the RFP.
But you know,
Yes.
you know what, and I'm sorry, and I'm not belaboring this, but we have a habit of making decisions and then taking it to the committee that it needs to go to after the decision was made. We do that quite often. And,
The problem was there was no committee for them to take it to.
okay.
The committee was just formed in the last week or
Last
so.
week. There was no committee, there was no multi-purpose committee. She couldn't have taken it to anybody because there was no committee.
So,
All of these committees are
okay, so
in the last week.
if we don't have a committee, we just selected a committee,
The
the
commi-
chairman just selected it, thank you.
You're
The
welcome.
chairman just selected a committee. So
And the-
why, I mean, I understand the urgency on it, but is it that urgent that we have to do that today?
Well, and the committee that I'm mentioning in this recommendation was the staff committee to negotiate the contract and bring it back to the full board.
Now, see, I thought you meant this committee was gonna do it. So this committee's not gonna do anything, there's no need for a rush.
I'm just clarifying what.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that's not what,
Yeah, mine would be that not bring it back to this full board, but that committee, you would engage the committee and do all of that with the committee, and then, just like we did, the other ones. Because the problem is that, I think the creation of the committees was because we only meet twice a month, and one of the months is in the morning, we don't do a lot. We only have an agenda setting conference once a month. It's difficult to move these projects forward, and that's why these committees, I think, are important to keep these things, one, to keep them on task, and one, to be able to move quickly and make it a little bit more flexible for management and staff to be able to work. And so so when the motion here was that it would be, mine was committed to our committee to be able to do that. And I think that would have been her motion in connection with whatever committee you
We'll
want.
do whatever the board desires.
Yeah, any other commissioners?
is this the same process we did for the 911 center?
I'm trying to figure out whether the committee was formed before or after.
Well, there was a committee formed
Early.
early on with the city and the county, and
But then-
it continued on.
Yeah, because then we actually, you and I and Marshall, I think, set the bar of amount of money and brought it back to the board.
In fact, we had one company, Tracy, I think we had one company that ended up not continuing with us, and we ended up going with another company.
Okay, if that's all,
So the money's not gonna matter because you're directing them to negotiate a contract with these
no,
folks.
the money that I was talking about with Mr. Keith was for the entire project. Mr. Keith, Commissioner Keith, Mr. Fairclough and I, basically kind of, because I think Commissioner Keith had been here when we did the jail, said, hey, you said this, is that right, Commissioner Keith? I don't want to speak for you, but.
Well, that hasn't worked. That hasn't worked. They're asking for more money and all they've done is gut the building. It was perfect to begin with.
All of those in favor?
Voting in favor, can I see your hands, please? Commissioner Lancaster, Council Stewart, Chairman Evans, voting in
No,
opposition.
Adams.
I am so sorry.
That's quite all right. We're interchangeable.
Chairman Evans,
Touche.
voting in opposition. Commissioner Evans, Commissioner Booth, and Commissioner Keith.
And if I may say something, Mr. Chair.
Certainly.
Thank you so much. I would hope that going forward with anything that we may do, that before deciding on someone, then sending it to a committee after you already decided and the board didn't decide on it, that we do better at this. Because that's how we lost out in the swamp.
Commissioner Stewart. Commissioner Stewart. We give it.
Is that a clerk, what do you remember?
Go ahead, Commissioner Stewart.
And adding on to what Commissioner,
Yes, you're right. That's how we
Commissioner,
lost. Because you had
you know
already
what?
decided.
You don't have to do you like you did. Commissioner Stewart, I'm gonna do you too. Commissioner Stewart.
adding on to what Commissioner Evans said, I think that we have to do better at communicating to staff what our intentions are before we have them go on and then come back. That's what kicks the can down the road. because staff has believed that they have clarity about what, because Amy always says, am I clear? Let me be clear, I want to be clear, and that's how Amy ends her conversations with us, and then we say, yes, she's clear, then come back, and then we're in a conversation 25, 30 minutes later.
So I think around the table, even though, in terms of the vote, is that the committee structure, I think, is important.
Yes.
And if the chairmans of those committees would call those committees to order with the staff, we can have that before it gets here, which is why I think you can hash it out in those committees. So I appreciate all of those who agreed to serve. Yes, ma'am.
But anyway,
You just got put over.
I would very much appreciate the full board being noticed when the committees meet, as usual. Don't we usually do that?
Yes.
And then everybody will feel.
Because I think it's a public, it's noticed as a public meeting, so I think Madam Clerk, all of those are noticed as public meetings.
Public body is.
Right. So all of us can come, and it's not a violation of
All of us
those
can
rules.
come.
Right.
Well, we always get the notice, we always get the notice.
That's what she said, she said. All right, Madam Manager, that takes us to the formal bid request for the Judge E. Morris Beresford Courthouse.
Are we gonna get the presentation?
Why need the presentation? I'm gonna go to the hiring mark. I mean, if you want to hear the presentation, I'll let the committee hear the presentation.
Throw it down here.
But then they might charge me now that I hired them. I don't know. If any of y'all want to hear the presentation, I don't have a problem. But I mean,
No, they okay, Glenn, to have it.
I mean, the committee's gonna hear from them. I get all of the details more than
Hear
them.
from them.
You would? Okay.
So would I.
All right, come on. Y'all like they want to hear from you.
We're happy, absolutely, we're happy to do it.
Sorry you had to sit through all that.
Well, they just get a taste of that committee, Mr. King.
We're gonna see if they're gonna walk out on us.
Mr. Chairman, you ready?
I'm ready. Ready for you.
Thank you. We really appreciate having the opportunity to present our qualifications on the event center. I'm Kevin Lugo, and I'm Vice President with MVP. I'm out of our Raleigh office. We're local. We really want to support you on the team, on this project, commissioners and team. And with me today is one of our project leads, our project manager, Matt DeSilver. He's a PE and certified construction manager. He's also local from this area. And so I know you can read the slides, so I'm not going to regurgitate that all for you.
Matt? Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. So, as you can see, we have a very skilled team that we're bringing forward for the project. We're leaning on their experiences and their strengths and expertise in order to move forward with it. But this isn't the only team that we do have. We still have the full back reach of the entire company that we can go to. Many other people in the company that have done multi-purpose centers in other locations that we will be pulling information from. We did read through the feasibility study and study it. We know that you want a center that you can be proud of, that you bring in the top talent for, that can bring in revenue to the county. We also know that you want something that's a multi-purpose, something that is for the community and can be used. Here's some assumptions that we've pulled from the feasibility study. 2,500 seat capacity is something that was noted in there, around 89,000 square foot, somewhere in the range of $75 to $80 million for the project budget. And then from the site selection, we do understand there are 3 sites that are being considered, or 3 areas that are being considered. And there is a preference towards downtown, but it still needs to go through a site selection process. We are going to take what has been in the feasibility study, and we do have a working plan to work with the county to work through the entire process and understand where is the optimal location out of those 3 areas. From the scheduled time frame, as discussed, it's a very tight time frame. It's doable but tight. We're looking at, I believe it's end of October 2025 is when we're looking to have this new center moving forward. There's a lot of different considerations that you'll have to look at. Project delivery methods.
Can I ask
Yes.
a question though? The 2025 deadline is only because that's when the other buildings are gone.
Yes.
But can it move faster than, I mean, I guess, and I guess the committee would get to that, because that outside date is only an outside date because those buildings are gone. We just want to before those buildings are gone. So that's the hard date, but
Right.
can it be, in terms of the timeline, did you set the timeline based upon the end date or something shorter, or it just takes that long?
We need to, in the very beginning of the project, set an actual project schedule that's going to have the design time frame and the construction time frame. And part of what you need to look at is different project delivery methods. There's design bid build, which is a low bid, which takes longer because you have the separate design and separate construction time frames. There's design bid build, and there's CM at risk, which are ones that bring in, or design build and CM at risk, which you bring the contractor on early, and you can do early packages. Some of those early packages can be purchasing materials. Right now, we see steel bar joist, roofing material, long lead times. You're going to want to look at having that stuff come in earlier. There's also early packages you can do for site work. So different ways that you can accelerate the project and have it come in a shortened time frame. But we would need to look through this with the county to understand what is the best.
But ultimately, Mr. Chair, we're trying to, we'll be looking at ways to optimize the schedule here and try to bring it in as efficient as possible to see if we can bring some of the work in.
And one of the things brought up very early, validation of the project requirements. We do need to sit down with you and understand what the project requirements are. We've seen what's in the feasibility study, but we can't just move forward with that. We have to sit down with the county and understand what exactly it is you want to move forward with. So as we're doing the proposal process with the architect, putting the design together, it is what you want and what you need. So that's going to be one of the very first steps, is understanding that. We're going to strategize how we can bring in this project quicker, what we can do to move it forward, what we can do to minimize risks. And that's where we get into the budget and the schedule and really helping you set what is the master budget and master schedule for the project. The budget's going to be important because it's a project budget, so you need to really think about all the different bits and pieces that go into it, not just the overall construction. And then we're going to monitor the progress all the way through, from pre-planning to the closeout of the project. We know stakeholder engagement, I mean, we've heard it this morning already, that it's extremely important to have stakeholder engagement. We want to do the outreach to the civic leaders, to the group here in the county, and really have everybody involved. We look at the risks, we identify what they are, we analyze what they are, and we look at ways that we can either remove the risks or mitigate what the risks could be as you're going through on the project. There's always unforeseen conditions that may happen during construction. It's very important that we're transparent and communicate anything that is occurring throughout the project so that nobody is surprised. Here's an example of a dashboard that we use. This is for cost estimating, and it just really gives you an idea where we do track everything and we provide that to the county so that they can understand what's happening, and we provide what the different risks and opportunities are for the project. And then this gets into project experience. Other sites, multi-purpose centers and projects that are similar to yours. First one is at BSU. We were the owner's rep on that project, and Spectra was the operator there. We were able to work with them through that project to really build something that is there for the community to use. At DPAC, we've been involved on the mechanical systems after construction. What they turned around and found out is the mechanical systems did not work the way that they were originally designed, and we have had to help them through the process to make it a comfortable space for the patrons. And we're actually helping them right now on redesigning the mechanical systems to bring it up to the standards they need. Riverfront Park down in Wilmington, we've worked with Live Nation on that one. We found a lot of different areas where we need to coordinate with them to understand they have the correct facilities and utilities there in order for the end performers to plug in their equipment to be able to use at the different facilities. City of Wilmington's another public project, $85 million. It was a public-private partnership for this one, but we were the owner's rep again, working through the city. Now I'm going to let Kevin talk about these two.
Don't talk about that Hope Mills Dam that took 10 years to do now. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, you're absolutely correct. I was in and around that.
I'm getting a little worried over here now. I know how long that dam
This
took.
job is near and dear to my heart.
I bet it is.
I worked very hard on it. We were involved in this project in 2009 before the Labyrinth Dam failed. We helped work with the town to safen the project up and go back to trying to get the original designer and contractor to fix it. It didn't happen. We ended up in litigation. Eventually, we were able to settle the project out, and we took the job and we made the first design-build job in the state of North Carolina for a dam. It has won many awards. I'm very proud of it. The town's very proud of it. I can sit and talk to you for hours about this project. I lived it.
But you weren't on the front end of the project, is that correct?
That is correct.
I just remember the project.
Real clear, can you?
I am the troubled project guy for the town of Hope Mills.
So you fixed the problem.
Yes.
You fixed
Yes.
the problem. Okay. It's important for me to know that.
Yeah, no. Another one, downtown here, as I'm sure you're well aware of, the Sega Stadium. We worked on that as well. I worked closely with the city of Fayetteville and MVP, and we helped resolve this project. It had a lot of delays and some concrete deficiencies, and it settled out in favor of the city.
They were picking the color of the brick, so that took a little bit. Mr. Keefe and I were there on that one.
Yep, that's one right downtown. And again, another project that we were involved in. I worked closely with the city of Fayetteville to resolve this project as well. As you probably figured out, I am the cleaner. And this job also settled out in the city's benefit, so quite proud of these local projects that we help our owners with. And Matt, let me turn it back over to you. This is your project here.
Yeah, this one is near and dear to my heart. I lived this one for 3 years, College of Charleston. It was a renovation, demolition, and addition to a building right in downtown Charleston. There is no laydown area there. There is no parking area, and you're working around college students the entire time. They're just trying to walk right through your job site. So we were able to work, have everything hemmed up, really support the area, support the college, keep everything safe. Worked through even finding cannonballs in the crawl space during this project, which was interesting. But we did save the college $8.5 million in change orders over the course of this project. So that one is very important to me. But we are local. We have a track record for performing these projects. We have been a trusted advisor to the area, and we do have a large team that can support this project. So we are here and we are ready to work for you guys, and we really do appreciate you letting us present to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on one second. Commissioner Keefe.
Got a couple of different questions. First of all, I'm not speaking for the board, but I can save you some time because downtown is pretty much where it needs to be. That's what the consultant said. That's what our promise to the city was to get this going on. So I didn't know other places were on the table for them doing site selection.
Well, yeah, and the feasibility study is where we pulled that from, but we need to make sure with the county, and that's why we were bringing up right away, we have a plan to sit with the county and make sure we get the right spot that's optimal for everybody.
I'm glad you got the cleaner here because, you know, when things go wrong, it's nice to have somebody that is here. So as an owner's rep, how early on, it seems like you have a lot of construction people with a lot of construction expertise, but what about the marketing, and you talked a little bit about the community outreach, where do you start? I mean, where does your company and the presentation and meeting with the community, or is it mostly on the construction side?
We execute projects from inception to project closeout.
Okay.
Some projects are just on the design phase. Sometimes we're involved in the construction phase.
Okay.
And we are excited to be involved in the entire process on this project.
So in the RFP, because you talk about a couple of public-private partnerships.
Yes.
Are you also identifying opportunities for private partnerships to be part of this? Is that part of your scope?
We can include that as part of our scope. We do not have, right now, as far as we understand it, it's a blank slate on how we're going to execute this project. And that's why it's important for us to have interaction with the team and the commissioners and the community.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I got two other ones real quick. I have a concern with the Federal Baseball Stadium. Mr. Adams and I were actually on that committee. They had a number of cost overruns on that.
Yes, they did.
Yep.
So he was brought in again, he came back and was brought in on the dispute resolution process. He was not a part of the original team.
That is correct.
Because the things that make us scream in our pillow are cost overruns and delays.
And me too, and that's what I do. I live that, and my role has been for those projects, the baseball stadium and FAST, was to help resolve why they had overruns, why there were delays, and who shot who.
Yeah. And does your company be held accountable for deadlines? And the reason I'm asking is we're on a hard day. Okay?
We understand. So our approach is going to be to identify risk, maximize efficiency of your schedule, and attempt to get this project done on time. That's our main goal. Now, can we control what the contractor does per se? Not necessarily, except maybe holding their pay checks. Or, if there's a supply chain issue, there's a supply chain issue. What we're going to do is identify what that supply chain issue is, work with the team in partnership to figure out ways to get those things here on the project, get the design done on time, so we can meet the deadlines.
Okay. And the final thing, I guess it's really for the manager, is when does the debt have to be issued on this?
2024.
Okay, so until then, we don't have to worry, we're going to be internally funding.
Through the capital planning model.
Okay, thank you.
Am I correct? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, well, thank you so very much. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Madam Manager, I guess now that takes us to the formal bid award.
Yes, it does. This is a formal bid award for roofs here at the Maurice Braswell Courthouse and the Department of Social Services.
Madam Manager, he's getting that up. When they were cleaning the windows and stuff, did we not do the roof?
No, sir.
Oh, okay. I just gotta remember when we had all the scaffolding out there and stuff, I thought we did something to the roof.
No, sir, not to my
Were we
knowledge.
installing chillers or something like that, something?
May have been chillers.
We doing something on top of the roof, I remember. That's your favorite project. Oh, those chillers are my favorite project.
So, yes, Commissioners, these were two separate FY22 CIP projects that we combined into one contract to give the county leverage in obtaining the best possible price in the current construction market. The lowest responsive and qualified bid was from Owens Roofing, incorporated at $1.7 million for both projects. We budgeted $1.9 for the two projects in the FY22 CIP program. And so we're recommending that the Board of Commissioners award the bid for Department of Social Services and the Judge D. Maurice Braswell Courthouse roof replacement to Owens Roofing Incorporated, authorize the county manager to approve change orders, if any, and add this item to the January 18th, 2022 Board of Commissioners meeting as a consent agenda item.
Does anyone have any questions? Commissioner Evans?
Thank you. Owens Roofing. Can you tell us something about it?
It was the company, the roofing company that completed the roof replacement for the detention center.
It was what?
the roofing company that completed the roof replacement for the detention center.
Okay, so that's telling me what?
That they performed well for the county in the past. The design engineering firm that we used, which is Fleming and Associates, has worked closely with this firm. This firm has a strong track record of actually producing projects on time, on budget, with minimal change orders.
Okay, and so it was selected because of their past work that they have done with us.
Well,
This was a formal
it's
bid.
a formal bid
It
process.
was a formal bid.
You know, and I saw that, they were significantly lower than the other two, which are a little bit closer. I mean, it's just, I mean, this is the total cost of the project, 1.1717, 274.
Yes, sir, for both projects.
And, so, I would tell you they are, you wanted to see they were, Smithfield, North Carolina. And the owners were Ray Knowles and Ray Owens. Anybody else have any other questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and second, all of those in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioners Lancaster, Council Stewart, Chairman Adams, Commissioners Booth and Key. Voting in opposition, Commissioner Evans.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Manager, that takes us to the digital logging recorder contract.
Yes, sir. This is an item I'm going to ask Gene Booth, our Emergency Services Director, to present. This is a piece of equipment for the 911 center. This was also procured through a bid process. Mr. Booth.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The digital logging recorder contract is the item that I'm bringing before you today. Sorry.
I can't hear.
What that piece of equipment does is log or records and logs the 911 calls as well as the radio traffic with first responders out in the field. It's a very important piece of equipment. On December 6th, the Board of Commissioners approved a bid award for the digital logging recorder with Carolina Recording Systems in the amount of $130,598. And that was based on the overall best value. This system will consist of technology that will satisfy the present needs and future needs for the 911 center, and it's also in compliance with NEMA 13 standard for next-gen 911. The total cost includes the purchase, installation, and data migration, integration, training, and project management and implementation. There was a funds in amount of $1.4 million that was designed for technology for the 570th place project all together. Cumulative, so this meets the budget amount within that line. Staff recommends the following recommendation be forwarded to the January 18th, 2022 regular Board of Commissioners meetings as a consent item and approve the contract with Carolina Recording Systems.
Commissioner Booth.
Thank you, sir. I must be reading something wrong. The first sentence says on December 6th, we approved this already.
You approved the
Bid award.
bid award. This is for the contract.
I can't sign the contract. The signature authority is beyond $99,999. And so,
Shouldn't we wait for 2 years or so and find out what the prices are and what the real level is of recording systems closer to when we're actually going to get in the building? I mean, we're going to have this recording thing in what, 30 days? We're 2 years away from getting inside the building. We might have technology way beyond our scope then.
Mr. Walker's going to provide an update. The 911 committee met last week. We believe that move-in date is closer to the end of June, and we do need this. The timing of ordering and getting this is critical.
It's June of 2022?
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
Commissioner Keith.
Real quick, Gene, you claim that's that same budget number you had for equipment a year ago, $1.4 million.
Correct.
Is the price of that not going up?
No, we've maintained fairly well the budget line for all those equipment items, technology. I guess the bigger challenge is supply chain.
The delays.
The delays.
The delays.
Okay, so if the building's ready, is the equipment gonna be ready for that? I mean, are we talking about operating at the end of June?
Yes, the delivery time on this particular piece of equipment is within the construction guidelines or timeframe.
Okay, so Gene, you're telling us $1.4 million is what equipment is, and that's what it'll take to fully furnish this 911 center?
From the technology
Yes,
side.
technology altogether.
Technology.
Okay. Thank you. Good. Motion to approve.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any other questions? All those in favor?
That is unanimous. Mr. Chairman, may I include the first and second to the motion?
There was
Second.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Keith and Commissioner Booth.
Thank you.
All right, this is the request from the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office, Madam Manager, to go to Rocky Mountain.
Yes, sir.
At least the city manager was there, was from Fayetteville, and the police chief was from Fayetteville State, so anyway.
Okay. So, attorney for the sheriff's office is here, Mr. Mitchell.
This is a fairly simple one. Make it quick.
They're not simple.
Robert Hassel, as you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, was here. He knew we had the shoot tank. Our shoot tank began to fall apart. He found somebody that had sheet metal and that would weld it back together and asked if he could have it. Frankly, it would cost us money to dispose of.
All those, can I get a motion?
Motion to send it to Rocky Mountain.
All of those, that's,
Second.
it's a second. All those in favor?
Unanimous.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
All right. That takes us, Madam Manager, to E, amendment to the financial policy.
Yes, sir. I'm asking our finance director, Vicki Evans, to come forward. This policy number 3.1 is in place. It's been previously approved many years ago. Mrs. Evans has provided an update, some recommended changes that she's presenting today to the board.
These with the ARPA?
There's one thing in there related to art, but
Yes.
the rest are general changes.
Yeah, and for the USC School of Government.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And good afternoon, Commissioners. As Amy stated, this policy, a portion of it specific to the ARPA language that has been added on page 10 was reviewed by the ARPA committee on Tuesday. However, there are multiple other changes throughout the policy that we took this opportunity to update since we had to update it for the ARPA policy. And so, specific to page 10, the new policy language states that the ARPA funds will be set up in interest-bearing accounts and that the interest earnings are not required to be sent back to the federal government, nor are they required to be utilized on ARPA-eligible expenditures.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
So, I'm just not trying to circumvent you. Is this what was before the ARPA committee?
So there's about 12 different changes. The one paragraph, the one addition specific to the interest earnings was presented to the ARPA committee.
I was going to say if that committee had recommended we were going to move forward. Go ahead.
Okay. And so, just to continue on, there was additional discussion. And so, we talked a little bit about procedure, but not amending the policy language. And so our procedure on the interest earnings are going to be that the interest earnings that are earned in the fiscal year will be totaled in July or August of the next fiscal year. We'll bring that amount forward to the board in a budget revision and present that at an agenda session to give the board an opportunity to decide on the best use of those interest earnings at that time, and then we can complete the budget for those. And so, as I stated, the ARPA committee, they did approve that portion of the policy, and within the memo that was in the packet, there was a list of multiple changes to the policy that we put in there to get our current practice, get the policy up to date with current practice. And so, as I said, all of those are listed in there by page number, and the attachment to the policy also is shown in track changes mode, and so all changes are shown in red.
If, that was forwarded to everybody, any questions? If not, if I can get a motion.
The Harbor Committee saw a lot of that, and I'll make a motion that we approve.
Second.
Been moved in second. All those in favor?
That is unanimous.
Thank you.
Madam Manager, that takes us to F, which is the Federal Legislative Action Plan.
Yes, sir. Sally, you've been working with the HAM group.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. As you know, the county is contracted with the HAM Consulting Group for Federal Legislative Services. So this afternoon, joining us through GoToMeeting, we have Ron Ham, Leslie Mazingo, and Debbie Bryant from the HAM Consulting team. They met back in December with our department heads and are going to present to you a proposed federal action plan for 2022 for the fiscal year 2023.
I thought they got lost in D.C. and all that snow. I hadn't heard from them.
We hadn't seen them in a long time.
All right, Mr. Ham.
Came off the more snow as it's going to arrive this weekend, or Sunday night, I believe, but no surviving the cold up here. Of course, Ron Ham, I'm here with my partners, Debbie Bryant and Leslie Mazingo. I first want to say good afternoon, Happy New Year. And first of all, thanks so much to you, Chairman Adams, Vice Chair Stewart, and the rest of the commissioners for the opportunity to work on behalf of Cumberland County. And we've had an enjoyable year working with all of you, working with your staff. And I wanted to do a couple things. One, we are going to discuss the federal action plan. I also thought it'd be good to give a quick overview of some of the things that we worked on with your staff and with our team last year. Just a couple of things, and of course, when we were brought on, it was to develop a federal agenda, federal action plan. But of course, ARPA was in place and COVID, and so of course we were able to be nimble and agile and pivot to focusing on that issue. In terms of, we came down, made presentations, and we're in continuous discussion with your staff and with some of you. So that was really, I think, the key thing that we worked on last year. The other two was talking about federal advocacy process, the development of a federal action plan, implementing that plan, and then how do we, bring resources back to the county. So I think because where we are with the ERP funding, all of that, we really are able this year to really drill down on the federal agenda, although we did have a draft last year, but again, I think ARPA, all of those things were in play, emergency rental assistance, so you had some major things that you needed to work on. What I will say is it's always great to be able to report wins, and one of the wins that happened was through the appropriations process. It's called emergency directed spending. You know them as earmark. There's a $4 million earmark pending now for the HR talent portal, which is for transitioning soldiers, parent spouses, parent military spouses, and veterans. And that's pending now. It's $4 million that was supported by Senators Byrd and Tillis. And hopefully Congress can finish the appropriation cycle. That will be a $4 million win back for the region. Now, this was a project that was a joint county and city project. As a matter of fact, we appreciate you writing those letters of support for the project. You've written one initially to the delegation, but also, and Deborah Bradford was amazing at working on this with you. We also asked Congressman David Price, who's chair of the House Appropriations Committee on HUD, to help us, push that along too. So the bottom line is we hope to hear something on that, but there is a win that is pending in Washington.
Mr. Ham, Mr. Ham, where does that money land? You said to the region, so I'm trying to figure out, because that's a lot of region around here. Where is it going to land, the $4 million?
I'll have Debbie speak up on that.
Thank you for the question. It will be over at the military business park. it's a construction project and we use HUD dollars, and that, the 4 million will be about half of the construction cost that Robert Van Goens has been putting together the project. So it will be located at the Military Business Park.
Well, no, I guess I'm not necessarily talking about the actual building, but the money when it comes to town. Where does it go? Does it come to the county, the city, EDC? Where does the money land? Who controls the money?
It will be at the EDC, it'll be the EDC, and they will have a 501c3 nonprofit board of the HR talent portal. And obviously, that's a collaborative effort between the city and the county, working with the EDC.
Thank you.
As we move on here, one of the other key things that we worked on, as you know, are grants. So there's a 5-month report that goes to staff with many federal opportunities included, and actually their foundation opportunities included from time to time as well. Of course, we knew that the county was very interested in the body-worn camera opportunity. So what happened is that we ended up sending information on the grant, how to apply, and not only that, not just getting letters of support from the congressional delegation, which we did that, but we were more engaged in terms of talking strategy. We had several meetings with your staff, and then also helping with the preparation of the application, including reviewing the application. I think several rounds of review and providing feedback. The other two is that we have really good relationships at Justice, so we were banging on their door to let them know that the application was in. Also, before we submitted, sort of figure out the game plan and things that we really needed to focus on within the application. So I want to say your staff did a wonderful job of putting that together. Of course, the delegation was very happy to support it. It's a grant award of $700,000. So again, we're very happy that with that result, and we hope for many more. As you will know, there's so much funding in Washington, D.C. out of different places that grants are going to be critical in the upcoming year and beyond. So that will be something that we will continue to concentrate on as your Washington representative. The other two is that we actually have been working with the congressional delegation to get them to come on to sign a bill to make your ARPA dollars more flexible. So there was legislation pending for that. I just want to say that Congressman Hudson signed on. We told him why this was important to the county. He did sign on to that bill on behalf of Cumberland County. So again, there are different things that we do, all of course of making dealing with the federal government easier for you, finding those resources, and then also dealing with issues that may cost you money as well. Another thing that we also participated in, and we collaborated with NACO on this, was legislation that would support veterans. And basically, we ended up getting members of the delegation to sign on to that legislation as well. And again, Deborah worked on that, and I don't know if anyone have any questions, but the bottom line is it would allow grants that would serve areas with high rate of veteran suicide. I think you would be able to have a veteran line referral, crisis lines, and then also to deal with other types of issues that would be supportive of veterans, including the hiring of additional CDSOs. And my last thing that I'll touch base on here before we get into the federal action plan development was, of course, you've heard about the bipartisan infrastructure law, also known as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Of course, we were pushing, with many other organizations to make that reality. Tremendous amount of money, $1.2 trillion that covers anything from transportation to electricity to broadband to resiliency. There are going to be many grants coming out under the funds that were allocated in that bill. And some will flow directly to the state, others will be grant programs that the county will be able to apply for directly. And just the last thing here is I was on a call, actually while I was waiting to get on this call with Representative Hudson's office. We're going to be on a call tomorrow with FEMA to talk about the Rhodes Pond Dam project, so we'll receive an update from them. So I wanted to just sort of give you an idea of some of the things that we have worked on, some of the things that we are working on. And then we can talk a little bit about the federal action plan, unless there are questions before we get to that piece of the program.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
I have a couple of on the draft. Can we talk about the draft right now, or do you want to?
He's going to present
He
that.
hadn't done it, he said he was gonna present that.
That's fine.
That was on the winds.
Yeah, on the results.
So he wants you to look at it before he paid the president.
Moving forward. Okay. Sally, is this displayed in the meeting?
No.
No, it's in their agenda session, pack.
Okay. Anyway, when we develop, and this has been a process we use for years, we use it with all of our clients, in terms of developing, we like to call them our marching orders for the upcoming year. And sort of what is the strategy, what is the game plan, what are the asks that we want to make? I think as Sarah had mentioned, we met with, had several days of meetings with your staff on the things that are on the list that we presented here, that we drafted. As you will see, it's broken up into different pieces, with its infrastructure, community services, community services, and then just a host of other things, public safety. So what we did is, we didn't want to eliminate anything. We thought, let's look at all these things and sort of determine where we want to go on from a funding standpoint, and then from a policy standpoint. So these are really a combination of issues. Some you will see will be developed in straight asks through our congressional delegation, also as grant proposals. Some will need to be policy statements that we will also share with congressional, and maybe perhaps there's language that would need to be drafted to be put in the legislation. I'm not going to go line by line on this because it's quite a bit of stuff that you're going to be looking at there. But what we wanted to do was to have you take a look at this and see if these are things that reflect your priorities, are the things that we don't have on the list that we should be thinking about, and then are the things that, maybe once you take a second look at this, maybe is something that you want to leave for a later time. Again, this is a draft, so we'll be working again with your staff to finalize this, and this is really what's going to be presented to your congressional delegation. Once will it be in the March timeframe probably. We'll take it up, talk about it, and tell them why these projects are important, why they're your priorities, and why they should invest in those, whether it be through the appropriation cycle or grants that we will be seeking to support these projects. So I'll stop talking now and have you take a look at this. And I don't know if I left out anything, Leslie or Debbie, that you guys wanted to add. But otherwise, I'm here to listen to you now.
Commissioner Keith.
Thank you. I'd like to start by saying, Leslie, I'm sorry for your loss, but I was supporting Georgia. Yeah. Okay.
Everybody's got it, one every 41 years.
We'll take it when you can get it. Good comeback. Not like you didn't try. You didn't try. Okay, Ron, whoever, there's a lot of stuff on there, a lot of good stuff on here. I don't know how much of it really falls. Do you believe everything on this list falls into the federal pool that we can ask on? Because there seem to be some real regional things.
Yes, when we look at this, typically, when we're in those meetings, they bring up something we think that can't be done on the federal level, we typically will not include it. As a matter of fact, Leslie and I, last week, there was something that I didn't have on, that she went back and looked at, and we found that actually it did have a federal nexus. So, yes, all of these things will be something related to something.
Okay, here.
Yeah, if you fund them locally or regionally.
No, we don't want to. We want the federal government to do it. So Ron, here's my punch list that we're having difficulty with. In North Carolina is one of the hot spots for opioid overdoses. And although there is opioid litigation out there, I would think that the federal funding can help out not only with opioid behavioral programs, but also Narcan for first responders and making sure that they have that ability. Throughout COVID, our numbers have skyrocketed. And North Carolina is a hotbed when you look at Wilmington and Cumberland County also. Thousands of people are overdosing. Job opportunities and education. And I don't know how federally you can get involved in that, but we internally have a couple of aggressive programs looking for training in the blue collar area. And I think that if you dovetail that in with soldiers leaving the military and opportunity, I think that that could be a really good program to enhance. We do have problems with food insecurities in our community, and I think the timing is right, maybe with Department of Agriculture for some sort of farmers co-op program or some other ability to work in farmers markets or co-ops or something along that lines. Food insecurity, we have a committee working with the Fort Bragg group in Cumberland County already, and I think that there's some opportunities there through Department of Agriculture maybe. I noticed you have emergency backup power for disaster centers in there. Does that have any leg?
Yes, I do, because, they're going through all, there's so much around resiliency at this point, so I wouldn't rule that out. I mean, definitely, whether it's something through DHS, through FEMA, but I do think there's a chance for that, for something like that. And I think I was reading even, they were allowing now, that could be under, I think, ARPA, that, I think a lot of folks were looking to do emergency operations centers. So I've seen those as something that could be possibly eligible. So I don't know if we can take that piece of this and maybe it becomes another part to be used under that funding. But absolutely, I can tell you from the FEMA and DHS standpoint, I think this would be something that could happen.
Well, actually,
Let me say this.
yeah, go ahead.
We just don't, work on Capitol Hill, so we do work with the agencies. So often we can get on the phone and talk to these folks. We've got a one-page or a tweet and say, hey, look, Cumberland County is looking for dollars for this project. What are your thoughts? Sometimes they may say, well, this doesn't work here. They actually thought about this. Or, if they pay for this part, maybe we can do this portion of it. So we're always talking with agencies on this to sort of get a feel from them. Because actually, the grants are going to come through the agencies at the end of the day. So the program managers are giving us some leads on this. I think it can help us come back to you and say, hey, I think we can do this, but we may have to tweak it so that it's going to be a project that will fit in a certain category.
Yeah. So Ron, dovetails into my last comment is the new guidance from Treasury on AARP seems to have been relaxed a little bit. So are you seeing that too?
Oh, absolutely. It is. It's 400 pages of stuff that I fell asleep reading through earlier this week over the weekend. But the bottom line, yes, it is more flexible. I think they did a great job done addressing the issues that local governments raise. I think it's a strong advocacy. I mentioned that flexibility bill before we were pushing Congressman Hudson to endorse. A lot of what that bill was going to do, they've actually done in this guidance. So yeah, whether there's more leeway in terms of the types of projects you could fund, whether you give some of that money for a non-federal match. The other big thing is the revenue loss piece, which, Sal and I discussed that the other day. There's flexibility, I think, for smaller communities in terms of dealing with how you calculate that. And yeah, there's lots of good stuff in that rule. And I will say, I was telling on the call the other day, there will be more guidance and more FAQ. Because people still have questions about this. So Treasury will still be around to test with this. And I will say that we do have, because the money is that where they're going to get directly to, not just their general email. So, yes, I think it was like a great Christmas present.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Ron.
Anyone else have any other questions? Anything else from staff or anyone else? If not, I think we've seen that draft, and when it gets the final form, you can forward it over, Madam Manager. And this was the draft. Thank you, Ron and Debbie and Nancy. Thanks for doing a great job you do for Cumberland County. I know that you do some of the stuff for the city, so if we can do some of them joint projects together too, that helps in terms of the amount of money that can come back to this community, because sometimes those agencies like to see that collaboration down to the local level. So we can keep that in mind. You have anything else? Oh, I'm sorry, I think the salad.
Chairman Adams, so then are you going to make a motion to approve this?
Well, he told me it was a draft, so I didn't know if it was going to be a final form. When you stick draft on it.
Well, we meant drafts until you wanted to make changes today.
I I just put some things on there that I want them to.
Well, can we, with your additional edits, so to move it to the January 16th meeting, 18th, I'm sorry, the January 18th meeting, so then they will begin preparing finalized and detailed information, so you'll have the briefing materials ready when the delegation from here goes up to the NACO conference mid-February.
So including things that,
Commissioner Keith.
if they fall into
Commissioner
it.
Keith added.
All right, if I can get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
It's been moved and second to finalize this, so when Commissioner Evans goes to Congress, we've got the advocate on our behalf. All those in favor? Absolutely.
Unanimous.
Thank you, Ron and the group. Thank you all so very much.
Just want to thank you for one more thing.
Uh-oh.
Just saying that Sheriff is putting this to my hometown.
Oh, that's right, Rocky Mountain. You're welcome. All right. Y'all take care.
And bye-bye, thank you.
Madam Manager, that takes us to G, the incentive agreement.
Yes, sir. Mr. Moorefeld's going to present this item, and we also have Mr. Van Giens here as well.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is the agreement for a proposed incentive that you approved back in March of 2019. So you probably don't remember it, but I copied the language there of what the proposal was. The reason, and this is the contract now, the reason it's being brought back to you is because the contract terms now are a bit different than what the proposal was, but the agreement still complies with the statutory requirements. And the company still intends to do the things that were stated in the proposal, but hasn't got there yet with the time frame to do it. So we're still talking about $1,000 cash payment to the company for each new job. It creates up to a total number of 60. There is still an insurance component, health insurance component in the benefits package. And there was discussion about the clawback being proportional to the job. It's no longer proportional to the job, but just to the amount of investment, which was really not a significant factor in this. This company is leasing this existing facility and it's done renovations to it. And the company's already in business. It's already in business. And I'd recommend approving it.
Anybody have any questions?
Chair, I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and second. All those in favor?
Thank you, Nicole.
Unanimous.
Thanks EDT for the good work that they do and for moving this right along. You're welcome. Yeah, sit over there. Madam Manager, that takes us to five, the update on the Hope Mills planning.
Actually, can we go back, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, that's right, I missed. There's an H. Rental assistance project, yeah, we need to talk about that. The IEM,
Yes, sir. While Mr. Jackson's making his way to the podium, just a point of clarification, the 1.7 million today that's in the memorandum that's been placed at your seats is related to the second and final round of the federal ERAP 2. And so I believe on the radio today, there was discussion of the county having an additional 17 million. It is true that the state has made an allocation to the county of $17 million. However, we are not at the point of executing that funding. The state has yet to send us any type of contract or interlocal agreement to move forward.
did they send any money?
Vicki, is the money here, the 17 million, has it been received?
We don't have any money then?
Yes.
Okay. Even though they got the contract, we don't have any money. I mean, I think it's important for the citizens to know that that 17 million is not sitting here in Cumberland County and we're not spending it. We know that the 17 million sits at the state. We're waiting on the state to send the contracts and the money to Cumberland County and then we can move from there.
Yes,
so
sir.
I don't want anybody thinking we got 17 million that we earn interest on. It's not here. Thank you, Ms. Evans, for that. I think that's the very first thing we needed to know was that it wasn't here.
It's not here, and
it's not
neither
in
do we
Cumberland.
have a contract.
And we don't have a contract.
Yes, sir.
And then we have to do the process anyway.
Yes, sir, that's correct. Mr.
Jackson.
Thank you for the clarification.
Can we get a little bit of update, because it's just all in the newspaper? The amount of money that we did have, and we have with the city and the county, has all been allocated, if you can kind of tell us that, so, because there was a pause put on, so if anybody calls us, we know what that pause was. It's not because we're holding money, but because it's all been allocated. If you can go ahead and give us
Sure.
a little update.
Of course, D. Taylor, our community development director, is here with me, and if we have some questions, I'll defer to Dee, because she's the subject matter expert. But I will say, yes, that is the case. We paused the program in terms of accepting more applications because the funding has been exhausted. This amount of money, the 1.7 that we're talking about today, and the contract amendment for IEM, these are funds that we had not had in the queue that are becoming from the federal government now to be going towards applications that are already in the queue. So
Additional money that has just come down.
So these are funds that were allocated to the county. We requested them. They're moving into the queue to start helping those folks that have applications. I will tell you, there are way more applications than there is funding at this point. So that's one of the reasons, the main reason we had to pause this program.
I know.
We're waiting for additional funding from the state.
You did the math on us.
Already done it.
You did the math.
We have to. So that funding eventually will be coming from the state, but again, there's a process there. We didn't want anybody to have any illusions that we had funding and that there was a hope of being able to access it at this time. So what we're asking for today is approval of this contract for IEM, this amendment, so we can add those funds, get them into the queue, and continue moving forward with the program. I'm glad to answer questions.
Yeah, well, I've got more of a statement that I just need to put out. It's 1.7, it's 25% that they're giving, which comes out to 1.2, and based on everything else, they'll be able to service only about 200 families. Okay? That 1.2 will only be able to service because they'll be making about $2,000 per application. To me, 25% is the ultimate change order that they put in here, because they started out the first part with 8%. And I grant that it's probably a little bit more, but they've gone 3 times up, and they're going to take $450,000 out of our RAP money that could help citizens. And I believe in paying for the service, but I believe that that is totally unacceptable for 25%.
Commissioner Booth.
I agree with that, and I was a little alarmed when I saw that some people, and we get calls about it all the time, have now heard that some people are getting a year and a half of rent, and they really need about 90 days, but they can't get the 90 days because someone else is on the year and a half list. And we give them like a 90-day parachute to leave. You know, we give them 3 months after they've maxed out or something. We then give them 3 more months to hope it goes well when they leave. And then there's someone over here that just needed 90 days to get through, like a maternity leave or a new job starting or something. I just think that the amount going to the ones who get their applications in somehow, somewhere, that are considered, there ought to be a smaller cutoff on, not paying for someone to be hardship at $1,600, $1,800 a month rent for 2 years. I mean, that, there's some folks that are trying to make $500, $600 stuff, and we could help them a whole lot more.
I'm keeping my mouth shut.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not familiar with what Commissioner Booth has brought
Well,
up.
I guess
We're glad to get some more information, details about that.
Well, I think that, you can talk about, is that within the program, you can go back and you can go forward. And so if you've got 2 people, with the one that just needs to do 30 days, 90 days, but you've given the money to the look back and the forward and given them twice as much because it fits within the parameters so that the other person doesn't get anything. I guess, if I'm not trying to speak, but the question becomes, instead of giving somebody 9 months, you might give them 3 months to help more people at the end of the day. I guess that's the question.
And I can understand your concern. I want to keep in mind that initially when the project was launched, we got to keep in mind the moratorium has been lifted. So there was a great need. Everyone The application are reviewed on a case-by-case basis as far as based on their need. The moratorium hadn't been lifted. We also, in addition to that, had an obligation posted down by the Treasury. We wanted to be careful not to place additional requirements or parameters on top of what the Treasury have already had in place. So we just wanted to first determine what the needs are for each of the application. Now, of course, we will ensure that we review those applications, reassess the needs based on the availability of the funding, and determine whether or not we want to place caps, especially with the state funds, once that come down. But initially, we didn't want to take the risk and put in additional requirements due to, the moratorium just lifted in August. So you had people who had rents going, way back.
Yeah, my problem is absolutely not with you or your folks. It's just, like you said, they've gone in there and they go, well, so what are you applying for? And they go, what? They go, well, you can get your current rent, and if you are behind, they'll go, yeah, behind. And they'll go, all right, we'll get that too. And then we can also give you, when you get to the end of it, we'll give you 3 months that we hope we don't see you again. And that's great if the drawer where all this is coming from will accommodate 100 people. But if we can do 200 people for 6 months, I'd rather do that than 100 people for a year. I mean, that's just a personal
We'll
preference.
reassess.
I guess it's to keep people from becoming homeless, as opposed to going to 3 months ahead of time. I guess that's what you're talking about. If this gonna keep you from getting evicted, we need to do that to as many people as we can. And then if there's other money later on, you can do the forward, but we need to be able to do hints right here. I guess that's kind of the conservative viewpoint of that.
Can I have Dee address the percentages that were mentioned?
They're the key, so that was the question.
We'll try to address that. So the 10%.
Oh, yes, so with the second allocation, out of that 25%, no more than 15% is for admin, and the 10% is for housing stability costs. So that helps with any type of supportive services, case management, and any other costs related to the housing stability.
I guess the question, so is the administrative fee up to 15%? It says 25, but not to exceed 25, but you said some of it's stability.
Housing stability.
Housing stability.
What does that mean?
Supportive services like case management, any type of like legal fees that's associated with.
At the end of the day, it's still 25% of your money though, right?
Yes,
It's
sir.
taken off. Okay. But we didn't have the administrative fee or the housing stability cost in the original contract.
No, because it wasn't allowed in the guidelines at that time.
Well, at the first allocation, they pretty much combined it
We only paid
with
8%.
right. And so with the second allocation, that's when the feds pretty much identified, okay, out of this percentage, 10% can be for housing stability. They pretty much defined it, provided better clarity on what they meant by housing stability and admin. So it is computed, but they, with the second allocation, they provided better clarification on that.
So I guess
It's less money to check.
the question I would ask then on that housing stability and the caseworker, does that move the application through faster? And I think that was Commissioner Evans was asking, those caseworkers and everything, the stability, does that move the process along faster to prevent these people from losing wherever they are?
And to add to Chairman, is there a backlog for individuals receiving services that they need for their rent? I mean, is there a backlog? I mean, exactly what's going on, because I received calls where people had applied and they're not hearing nothing. And these funds are to help those individuals to stay wherever they need to stay. And if they're not getting them, who's responsible for them not getting them?
So in response to the first question, so with the 8%, initially designated, they had a smaller work level. That work level has increased. They have 58 staff, approximately 58 staff members assigned in this project, whereas at least 36 are full-time case managers, intake specialists assigned now to this project. And honestly, that is, as you see, it's still not enough, but this is all they can put in with the amount of, the percentage of admin that come down from the federal government are very rarely enough to fully support the amount of staff that we really need to implement these type of programs. It's there to leverage. It's there to leverage.
Okay, and the chairman said tonight that there's not enough workforce or enough labor force. Are these people sick with COVID or what's going on? Because it just doesn't make sense. They can't hire enough people. They can't hire enough people because of COVID? Because of money. Because of money. That's what she was saying.
They have 58 assigned to this.
58?
Yes.
58?
Yes.
So,
And at least 36 are regular care case managers that are day-to-day intake specialists.
yeah, I agree with you. That's a lot of people not to be able to do the job that's needed to be done for these individuals to receive the funds that they need.
And keep in mind the calls that come in, the amount of calls.
They have a call center, is that
Yes.
correct?
Mhm.
So is there a plan?
A plan, yes, sir.
Keep working.
To continue to, we pushed them, especially in the last couple of months, we pushed them to address the needs of our, residents, so.
So my question would be, after action plan, as to why some of this federal government, why didn't it work? Did it not work because of this vendor, or did it not work because of the parameters? I think that's what we kind of want to hear, to be able to tell people, is that I think it started off, messaging was bad. I've always said that, because we just basically told anybody if you didn't have rent, come, and everybody wasn't qualified, and it because it had income levels on it, so it backed up somewhat of the system and all of that. But I think you got to look back to see what worked and what didn't before we go on to this 17 million.
And Dee, I know that you're not a contractor, so please don't take offense to this, but this is your information that you gave me, that we've only serviced 2,500 people. And this program's been in place for 4 months now, okay? They got 36 caseworkers. That comes out to like less than 10 a month, 15 a month that they're processing. There's something going on. It's broke. It's broke. There's something going on here that they're not processing. If they got 36 caseworkers and they've only processed.
They're not full time though. I don't know. I'm just telling you.
Tell me how to fix the program.
City and county.
Go ahead.
You say you got 36 caseworkers.
Yeah, now this is not just covering the county, and city. They're working for both the county and city.
I'm only good as the information.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Read the fine print again.
I apologize for not clarifying it.
So, we're gonna finish up this 1.7 that we got.
Yes, sir.
And then we got to determine what we do with the 17 million that comes.
When we get some direction from the state.
So we need to figure out, did this company meet our needs or whatever, or there's some other folk out there that can meet our needs or whatever. But before us today is this contract, and are there any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I can.
Yes.
There's 4 different actions that we're asking for here. First, accept the funds from the U.S. Treasury for the remainder of the ERAP 2 in the amount of $1,773,457.20.
Okay, hold on a minute. So that's your first motion?
It's here.
Oh, it's right down here. Okay, go ahead. As a recommendation. It's on the very fine print down at the bottom. Y'all see it from the paper that they handed out. It's not on the computer. It's on the memorandum for the agenda for January 13th. Down at the bottom, it says recommendations and proposed action. Commissioner Evans got to put his glasses on, because that's a small print there. That's mine on too. Whoever did this, y'all need to do a little bit bigger on the print.
So, the second one is approve the associated budget amendment, B 220109. Authorize the county manager to sign the amended agreement and forward this as a consent agenda item to the January 18th, 2022 Board of Commissioners meeting.
All right. Can I hear the motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the funds from the U.S. Treasury for the remainder of the ERAP 2 in the amount of $1,773,457.20.
Second.
We want to take each one at a time. The only question I asked the Commissioner that I'm trying to do. If we take the money and don't approve this company, who then does it? And who has the ability to do it in the short term of time of getting the money out? That this money is already for the ones they already got in their queue to be able to do, from what I understand. So if we don't do this company, I'm not telling you to do this company, then you start all the way back over with the application process.
RFP.
Because these folks that are in the queue won't be in the queue anymore. The queue starts over. So then you've done a disservice to the people in the queue. I'm just laying it all out on the table. Commissioner Booth.
Thanks, sir. I agree with you, and that's what I'm worried about, is that we always hear, well, that's very clearly, they did it 1, 2, 3, 4, what they want us to do. So the next one coming in is to be at a minimum of 25%. Because we just approved somebody else at 25%, so they're willing to do 28, which is only 3% more than we did last week. We didn't like the 25.
But the other problem is one's fed and one's state. And I guess the state money might have came from the feds too, but the state's gonna have a different contract for us on how to use it and what the administrative costs it. So I understand that looking forward. But the thing about this is, if you don't do it all, if you take the money and don't do this company, those people in the queue that have already kind of been allocated this money won't get this money. So, yes, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, one thing about it, this is a problem. We really, I know I don't really want to approve this contract with the problems that we're having now with individuals getting their money. And I asked earlier, what's the plan? Okay, before we approve this contract, is there any way conversation can be held with this company or whomever is in charge of this to find out if they're going to do anything differently to make sure that these people get their money before we decide to continue to use it? Because if people are in the queue, I understand that. We don't want to hold that up anymore. So don't want to do that.
So that's a good question, Commissioner Evans. This 1.7 million will be directly allocated to those individuals who are already in the queue, who have already put in an application. And unfortunately, the 1.7 million will probably not service every application in there. And that's why we've made the recommendation to let IEN finish this out, close this chapter, and then the 17 million, when the state gives us some more guidance, then we're going to have to, as you say, Commissioner Evans, reevaluate how we administer those funds.
And I guess this kind of goes back to Commissioner Key. If the people are already in the queue, how are they going to allocate the administrative costs to this new 1.7? It shouldn't be as much, because you've already done the work using my money from the other.
Well, it depends on, that's a good question.
I mean, that's-
And a good thought. I guess it depends on where you are in the queue.
Right, yeah.
I mean, you could have fresh applications that really have not been reviewed, so.
But they're in the queue, I mean, I guess,
There's a
but they're
lot.
telling me, the way I hear it is, this money's already been allocated. So they gotta be through that first part. There's not going back to do initial applications. They tell me, we've already allocated more money than we have. So this 7 is just to pay the allocation, so I don't see why the administrative fee should be quite as high. That's just me. But I agree that this contract needs to move forward, because we need to do those people in the queue. So if I can get, Commissioner Keith has one motion on the table.
If you want to do them separately, I'll be.
No, I just assume just do them all at one point.
Okay.
And do the whole contract and move it forward.
I want to accept the money. but I don't necessarily want to approve the
I
contract.
know you don't, but we kind of,
Well, then I withdraw my motion.
okay. The motion,
Just a comment. You know, I've listened, but sometimes I find myself thinking about, and thank you, Ms. Cannon, about what the 1.7 will not do. I'm kind of torn here thinking about that money that has been spent and that money that has helped the people that needed it. So my dilemma right here, quick story. Guy's on the seashore and he's walking around and he's throwing starfish back out into the sea. And maybe some of you've heard this. Little old boy walks up to him and says, "Sir, what in the world are you doing?" He said, "I'm throwing these starfish back in the sea and so they can live." And he said, "Well, it's not going to make a difference to all of these." And he tossed another one out and said, "Well, it's going to make a difference to this one." So I'm thinking about the difference it's made to this one and that one and the other ones that have been helped by this program. And it gets back to what we said before. If more money comes in, I don't think we could probably find a single program that you and I or any of us know about where the money has matched the accessibility and the accommodations that it was intended to from the beginning. And so if I'm going to err, okay, as an educator, I always erred on the side of the child. If I'm going to make a mistake today in how I vote, it's not going to be on the side of those folks who should be held responsible because of services they have not received. So, you know, and Jimmy, I don't have my what you call it there to know what the motions are, but I'm sorry about the 1.7 or Glenn.
well, they're at the bottom, you know, it's real small.
I can't see them anyway.
It says accept the funds from the U.S. Treasury for the remainder of ARPA 2 in the amount of $1.773457.20, which is what?
I think that's what Jimmy said, he wants to.
And then approve the associated budget amendment, DR 220109, authorize the county manager to sign the amended agreement and forward this, well, if people vote against it, won't be a consent agreement, but it will be forwarded to the.
That's my motion.
Is there a second?
Yeah, let's move on.
It's been moved and seconded. Anybody got any questions?
Question.
Yes, sir.
You know what, when we started this conversation, it wasn't about whether or not the service is not doing, this program is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. Apparently it is doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's doing overly. It's doing overly because we have a lot of people that need the services. What we're talking about is the ones that need the services that's not getting the money and is held up because the company is not providing the job that they're supposed to be providing in order to get for the people to get the money. That's what we're talking about. And so my concern is that these individuals that are in the pipe, if you got money, it might not take care of all of them. But then it's our responsibility to make sure that we get somebody that's going to do it. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, we get the money. Get the money. But we also got to be sensible about it. We've got to find somebody that's going to distribute the funds because these people are hurting. And they're hurting because we have a business that's not doing the job that it was hired to do. That's what it's about, Mr. Lancaster.
And I think that what we got a motion.
Hold it.
Wait a minute. We got a motion on the table to approve this. I think what we're looking at, especially when the next 17 million comes down, is to deal with the company, whatever company we do with the next 17 million. But for this one is to get these people in the queue, their money, which I think everybody around this table is in the same position. So all of those in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioners Lancaster, Council, Stewart, Chairman Adams. Voting in opposition, Commissioners Evans, Booth, and Keith. Could I reconfirm the second to that motion?
Council.
Thank you very much.
And I know we all get heated around the table. We're just going to be able to talk peacefully. This is not the city council. All right. I said it. And I said it. So, we're going.
I know some people who have not had rent from their properties for 8 to months. And they are afraid for whatever reason, or they've been turned around for whatever reason, and couldn't even get in line. I know some cases just like you do, just like all of us do. But we do the best we can with the starfish that we're throwing back in here.
Well, amen. But the thing about it is,
I know what you're talking about.
I want to say this as we finish up, that all of us on the same page is that the money gets to these individuals and not held up. And, as people take pot shots at the commissioners is, we're all on one accord of getting that money to these people and making sure that the citizens of this community are in need and nobody's holding it up, and that's why this moved forward. Madam Manager, that takes us to the update on the Hope Mills Planning Service.
Yes, sir. There's some changes abroad for the Hope Mills Planning Services with planning and inspections. Mr. Howard's going to give us an update.
So, Mr. Keith.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and the Commissioners. I just wanted to give you an update to the Planning Department's operations. This is just an informational item, so we're not requesting any kind of action from the board itself. So back in December, Mr. Scott Pizarros, who's the newly appointed town manager for Hope Mills, approached us. We had a meeting with our staff and their staff about plans they have for moving forward. If you know that Hope Mills is pretty much exploding with growth right now, they have just approved hundreds and hundreds of new homes coming online. So their operations are expanding significantly. For those that don't know, the Cumberland County planning staff handles a number of the day-to-day planning operations for all the towns throughout the county in one way or another, with the exception of Fayetteville. So through our course of conversation with the new town management of the town, there's an agreement coming on board that they wish to sort of guide their own future. They want to absorb all of the planning services that the county has historically been providing for them. As a first step to taking on the administrative sort of plan reviews, subdivision reviews, all the stuff that goes along with the day-to-day operations of the planning department. They've also started hiring new staff over there in their planning department, so they're pretty much taking this seriously. So the first step is just we are going to continue with the transition to Hope Mills. We're going to be working with their staff over the next month or so to try to ease that transition. This first step is they're going to be absorbing this, and they've indicated to us in the next year or two that they will be stepping, or they have an indication that they want to step off the joint planning board and absorb and build their own planning board, pretty much going the same route as Fayetteville, if you can think of it that way. So as staff, we are here to help them and to serve them. We've made that clear. So for the time being, we're still going to be providing E911 addressing, street naming, and some basic GIS services for them until they get on their own feet, but we're looking forward to the transition.
Anybody got any questions? The only question I have is, just like the city of Fayetteville, why would they stay on the joint planning board? And I see they wanted to do that. I mean, if you're going to take your ball and go home, take your ball and go home, and that just opens up another seat for Graves Creek or Linda or somebody that's out in the county that actually should sit on the planning board. So I think I just send back to you all to think about, as they're transitioning out, you don't get to stay on this board. I mean, it's just...
Mr. Chair, what I believe is happening is they're going for rezoning, and before on vacant piece of property, building all these homes on there and then getting the annexation.
Well, no, what they do is, from my understanding, is what they do is, if you want to build, if you want to get this rezoned, you've got to make that petition, kind of what you said, beforehand to be taken into Hope Mills, and then they give you the rezoning.
Right, but it's going to our planning board, but then goes directly, and it doesn't ever come to us.
Well, what I'm saying is, though, I understand that now they don't even want to do that. They want to take it out to Hope Mills. Right. So I'm saying then, Linden and all of them we still doing. I don't get to think you get the town of Hope Mills gets the point to this joint planning board, and to be able to tell every other city how to do it, the county and the city how to do it when they have their own. If that makes sense. It's okay.
Well, let me ask you this. It's just on for information. Do you want?
No, I'm not doing anything today. I'm just sitting back there.
Do you want to look into the fact of whoever the Hope Mills representative is, and when they estimate they're going to be able to make the full transition, is he or she about the same time? And then we can just do it later, or are they coming up in 30 days?
And it doesn't prevent somebody from Hope Mills being appointed on the board.
But not.
I mean, just use the Hope Mills Town Council didn't get the point.
Right, so I mean, I'm definitely getting the impression, commissioners, this is kind of a baby step type of thing. So like, their staff will be presenting all the staff reports, handling all the intake, and basically, our staff will be controlling the agenda for the time being. And so if they have a rezoning case, they just come before us, and then we put them on the agenda. Their staff comes over and presents all their cases to the planning board. I think they just need to do that so they can be able to get the administrative part lined up, and then they're going to move off.
That's what I'm saying, when they move off, the board moves on.
Correct.
They don't get the point there.
I think that's the intention, yes,
Okay.
sir.
The interlocal agreement would need to be revised.
Right, revised, because that's not what that says. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. So that takes us up to the update on the renovation of 500 Executive Place, Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Last week, as you know, the 911 committee met, and I've asked Mr. Walker to provide an update based on what occurred last week at the 911 committee.
I apologize if this is an eye chart, if you can't clearly. So initially,
Is that to confuse me, Mr. Jermaine?
it did take me back to command staff.
I know it did.
But just really quickly, if I could just direct. So starting out initially, we issued the notice to proceed on March of 2021. We started the renovation process, construction process, demolition, rough-ins for plumbing, electrical, mechanical, fire protection. And then we came to a decision point here in August of 2021, August 31st, where we had our first change order update. And from there, project timeline was extended 12 days. So initially, we had scheduled, according to the contractor's schedule, the project would have completed initial construction of what we would call phase 1 on January 3rd. And then that would give our IS personnel another 3 months to fully install all the automation so that the building would be ready to go live sometime in April. We've had another round of change orders. That was a change order update on the 911 committee last week. And then we've also experienced significant supply chain issues with 2 critical pieces of equipment, which is the uninterruptible power source and the backup generator. And tied to those 2 critical pieces of equipment, the change orders that we were looking at are electrical change orders, changes in the electrical panel schedule. And so now, with taking all those things into consideration, we right now believe that the phase 1 substantial construction date is going to be April 1st. And what I mean by that is that's the date where our construction will be complete enough to where our start working conjunctively with the contractor as he's working, completing punch, so that when the building is turned over completely to our IS folks on May 1st, that they'll be able to continue forward and have the building ready to go live by the end of June.
Can you tell me what the change orders were you mentioned?
Yes, sir, I'm gonna get to that. So, in context of change orders, the project is still within budget, even with the second round of change orders. We reduced the number of change orders from, as you can see, from 16 to 10. And in that process, we reduced the cost of those change orders from, as you see, almost $209,000 to about $155,000. Right here are the change orders that we incurred, and I can answer any questions that you have about those change orders.
I do want to add this, though. At the architect to attend the meeting. We were asking the architect to share in the responsibility for the remaining, most of the remaining change orders of $154,000. Mr. Walker and his staff have been working with the contractors and the architect for 2 months to resolve these and to reduce them to some degree. The committee action that was taken so that we don't lose any time in this process, we need to go ahead and approve the change orders. The committee approved the change orders with the provision that the county, with the county attorney, continues to work with the architect on resolving the financial side of the change orders. But in order to keep the project on the time frame for the end of June, we need to move forward with this.
Commissioner,
Just like looking at some of these, was in the bid originally, put them on notice, of security power supply and fire alarm circuits? That might be in an EOC? Or did we change that? And now they're telling us, based on our telling them about power supply and some fire alarms, that they're gonna have to charge us $5,000 more.
So, change orders 11 through 16 are change orders that are associated with what we consider to be discrepancies in the construction drawings. And so the contractor was able to bid on those particular items at 2020 material and labor rates. And so in order to facilitate these change orders, the county's now paying a premium. And so that's why we discussed the cost share between the county and AECOM, and that's where we are in the negotiation process.
I know the costs that we've experienced in the last year, 18 months, 2 years, are not something you can generally predict. But isn't there in the contract something that says, if they're gonna say that this mask is gonna cost $5, and then that's what they're bidding it on, that it can't go to 11 without somebody sitting down and talking? I mean, you know.
As long as it doesn't go outside of the consumer price index, that's what governs the.
Commissioner Booth, the committee, because when the committee met, I think that's the 11 through 16 he was talking about, because one of the specifics is they changed something, and we said, who authorized it? And at that point, they couldn't tell us, which is why we're in negotiation or a dispute over the 11 to 16, because they couldn't provide any information. It was like round robin, whether it was the architect or the construction or this or was it that. And I think that was the concern, but I think everybody in the room when we did had the meeting was that this didn't increase our costs in the line items that were set initially by 911. So in order to move the project to get to that June date was to go ahead and pay this, but to keep fighting over that 11 to 16. And even on number 19, which is that 43,000. Well, there's a debate about why it didn't get ordered, because you knew you needed it. And that was a big
contractor. The electrical contractor.
Right, and that was with the electrical contractor, so that was a debate too. But the items here, we need to be able to finish the building up. But I think Rick was in the room, and staff was in the room, Gene was in the room, Jermaine was in the room about, and we had them here at the meeting to have that conversation.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that's what, your explanation is great, because if we didn't tell them about an electrical circuit addition and they didn't see that in 2020, then we got to eat the 16.5 because we changed our mind. Adding power to the hot EOC and plan reviews, was that in the fire inspector's office?
Yes, that's a user request to change, sir.
User request? Okay, that's what I'm saying, those all make sense. It's just like,
what you point to,
as with the additional busway components, it gives our IS folks some resilience, some redundancy.
did we modify the chiller and the electric dryer? Good neighbors?
Those were discrepancies within the drawings.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. If we're sending out a bid and we're basically asking for a shed, and then we go, oh, by the way, what insulation, we'd like a couple of light bulbs and some sockets in there, then you gotta get ready to do that. But if we said, we want a shed that's actually gonna be a tiny house in a tree in our backyard with a small little refrigerator, I mean, you might get into a couple of here, but at least you have a different vision of storage sheds versus retired couple living in a tiny house. So, that's kind of germane to me understanding, is this their first contract like this?
Just for clarification, I've been discussing with Jermaine, if we don't get this resolved, we will vote the dispute resolution provision in the contract.
I understand. Dispute resolution provision, which stops everything and you go chat about it, so, but that's kind of like
Not to
a,
stop the contract, but to
No, no.
get
Not to
these.
stop the project.
Well, Mr. Chair, I got.
Yes, sir, Mr. Keith.
All right. Okay, is there any penalty for not making the due date on this contract?
There are liquidated damages, yes.
What does that mean?
That means if the 911 committee does not grant the contractor a time extension, then based upon whatever decided construction completion date, beyond that date, the contractor is charged $500 per day.
Okay, what date is that? What date is that?
Right now, based upon the current update, that's May 1st.
Okay, so right now, thank you. So right now, at May 1st, if they're not ready, they have to start paying $500 a day,
the tab runs.
correct?
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay, so, all right, great, good. Last thing is, Jermaine, put you on the spot. I've driven by that place a number of times. How confident are you of a June 30th date?
I'm very confident, sir.
Is that 100%?
100%. As long as...
100%!
If I may caveat, as long as we don't have issues, supply chain issues.
No, you can't. That's not 100%.
Well, then I retract that and ask to be struck from the...
Supply chain issues, and let me just say, supply chain issues are real, but I know people getting stuff, okay? And it may be they don't want to spend a little bit more to get it, or they're not resourceful enough, but it's really, really becoming a good excuse, kind of like COVID here lately, on a lot of stuff. So I just put that out. I think hurricane season starts June 1st, as it does every year.
Yes, sir. But if I can say this, I don't think the contractor has any incentive to stay on the job site any longer because it costs him too much in overhead and liquidated damages.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner, one caveat on the liquidated damages, and Jermaine has experienced this from the military side, so I know he understands. He can try to elaborate more than I can, but to assess liquidated damages, if you're at that point, one of the things you also have to do is demonstrate that the owner did not impact the schedule at all. So there's a higher level of scrutiny when you get to that point that says, okay, you're behind, but then everything comes out on the table. So it's typically it's a stick so that the contractor knows and they're assured that they don't want it to come to the table because they know there's delays that they've caused that haven't been recognized, but you get looked at from both sides. So that's one thing we want to caveat.
So basically, the tab starts to roll, but no one really goes out there and goes, you can't come to work today unless you give me $500. I mean, it's just kind of like, they'll say we'll be 30 days late, and we'll go, okay, we'll see if that's really 30, and if it's really 30, most of the time they forget the $500 a day, and everybody's happy and goes on. But if it turns in, we need 30 more days, and turns into 30 more months, then that's when it starts actually spanking a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things with this extension that Jermaine mentioned is the contractor has not requested additional overhead for the contract extension. So they're asking for an extension from January 15th to May 1st, and they're not asking for overhead costs for those 2.5 months of extension. So the time having their trailer on site, their staff costs, I mean, they budgeted to be done with the project by now. And at this point, they're eating that because they want to get done, like Jermaine said, and get off site. So they're showing, I think, goodwill in wanting to obviously meet that date.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. Thank you. That takes us up to the ARP update, Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Let's see. Just for the ARP, now, just to remind you that the committee has met 2 times since our last meeting. They met on Tuesday, December the 21st, and they met this week on Tuesday, January the 11th. And so yesterday afternoon, Carolyn Price uploaded quite a bit of information from that Tuesday meeting. The committee made a tremendous amount of progress. And so the first piece, I think, is I'd like to ask Vicki Evans to come forward and present the grant project ordinance that we need the board's approval on this, as well as a new policy that was created for allowable costs for expenditures. And then included in the packet as well are policies for the programs that we're going to try to launch next week.
Okay, excuse me. So the grant project ordinance is similar to capital project ordinance that we've done in the past on our major capital projects. The School of Government recommended that local governments adopt a grant ordinance. Basically what this means in comparison is that a grant project ordinance stays in place for the life of the funds as compared to like an annual operating budget where you have, it goes by fiscal year and it each year the budget gets adopted. And so that's one advantage to having a grant project ordinance. So what the project ordinance is based on is a template that the School of Government provided and we followed. And there are, it's broken down into section. Do you all want me to go through the sections like I did on Tuesday?
The ARP committee heard it. I don't know if the other members want to hear it. Mr. Keefe asked too many questions, so he's the chair of that committee.
We had a very robust discussion, and we went over it pretty well. So if the other members of the board would like to hear it, please.
I see a no and no.
Yeah.
You heard
If
it.
the committee's happy with it, then I'm happy with it. I'm just, if y'all have questions.
No, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Evans.
It was a good discussion, very good.
All right, thank you so very much. That takes us down to the monthly report.
Mr. Chairman, may I add something? So we do need to
Oh, we gotta have a vote.
Yeah, because we actually, we have 3 programs next week we're trying to launch. And that is aid to nonprofits, small business economic assistance, and then we're also putting out an RFP to get assistance in looking for optional sites for a homeless shelter that has been approved by this board. So you have to have a policy, and we have the applications and RFPs. We need the board to approve that as well.
Attorney, go ahead.
Moved by Commissioner Stewart. Second by Commissioner Keith. Voted on by Commissioner Evans. All those in favor?
That is unanimous.
And Mr.
Could I
Chairman.
clarify the motion, please? I'm sorry.
No.
Could I clarify the motion?
Motion was to accept the policy.
All of the if I may, all of the documents that are attached and uploaded in notice yesterday.
The grant project, the subsection 3, the policy aid to nonprofits, the draft rep for the nonprofits, the policy for the small business application, and the rep for the commercial real estate.
Homeless village.
So we're
Yes.
approving applications as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say to the committee, thank you for your hard work in this and moving forward, because I think that we're probably one of the only counties that are moving forward with the committee and doing what we need to do to make sure that the right people get funded. So thank you for everything that the 3 of you all do.
So Mr. Chairman, may I add just one piece of information from the December 21st meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
So thus far, we have been doing the work of the ARP with internal staff. Now that we know the programs that are going to be launched at the December 21st meeting of the committee, they approved 2 positions, a financial accountant and a program manager that will pretty much be dedicated 100% to these projects through December 2026. With that, we had to make some space, and so we actually have moved Public Information Office, Lauren Beimer and the other employees, we moved them to the other side of the employee clinic. And so to make space for the new ARP staff and also the Chief Diversity Officer that the board approved in December. And so I just wanted you to know we've had to move some folks around to make accommodations for additional staff.
Commissioner Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question, projects that are being launched soon, do you have a date that they're going to be launched and exactly what individuals they do, like the small business owners, and what has to be done in order for them to be able to take part?
Now, you can give the dates, and if you want to look those up, but I think one of the things that was in the, and I asked other two committee members, is once it's launched, there was a thing that people really couldn't contact us about the RFP and the program, I mean, of how to do it. So maybe they can explain that, Commissioner Keith better than I did, but it was an interesting kind of thing on Rick because people don't want to call you.
Federal regulations prohibit persons applying for these sort of funds from communicating with any of us, but particularly elected officials. If you have an associate who says, hey, I heard about this program, okay, come about it, let them know you can't talk to them about it, or they'll be ineligible to apply. What?
If they have,
They will be able to talk to a designated person in finance in the instructions.
We got to send them back to the county.
so if someone comes and asks us, what's the status of this program beginning, we are not allowed to answer that?
You can add general questions like, yeah, this thing is, because it'll be publicized, these things are supposed to, we're trying to roll out January 19th next week. There will be deadlines for, well, I guess there may be some time frames in terms of receiving proposals, or making applications, but those will be described in the.
It's detailed in the
documents that are submitted.
Maybe I have to do it this way. That stuff that goes out is not anything that we have that they don't have, so we can say that. The deadline is this time, and this is where you apply, this way you send it, because that's kind of general stuff.
Yes.
But if they ask you about how much money or whatever.
Can you go check on my application?
Can you go check on my application? Can you call about my application and stuff like that? I don't want any of us to get in trouble. That's the only reason I bring that up and for the public to know.
You don't get in trouble, but the applicant would be eligible. And if it were discovered in an audit, then Cumberland County had to pay the money back.
So I just wanted that to know.
So with that being said, I'm sorry, so that I'll finish my question.
We're going to get the deadlines for you. Is that what you want?
Yeah.
For the nonprofit RFP, the date of issuance will be January 19th. We were going to ask if we could extend the submission. Originally, we said February 18th, but we want to ask if we could extend that to February 28th to allow more time.
And you're going to send this to us, right? You're going to email these dates to us, so.
Yeah, we'll have a little talking points for that, and then officially this will be voted on at your Tuesday, January 18th meeting, and then they will go up on the 19th. The business one will be issued the next day on January 20th. That's for the small business. And all of this will be available quickly on our website, and we'll be pushing out the information through all the platforms and marketing to get that information out.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the businesses on the 20th, individuals will have to go online to fill out these applications, correct? Okay, so what if they don't have
But there's also, we also accept paper copies.
You're working with IS to have like an online where they can fill it in, but they can also click in and open up the PDF and fill it out, whether by hand or.
I guess he's saying, is there somewhere to go pick it up, the application?
We could have printed copies.
Yeah,
made.
that's what that's what he was getting at.
Libraries and things like that.
I think that was your. Yes, sir. Yeah. Commissioner Stewart.
Advertising bids will go out when?
After you approve it on the 19th, because we extended the deadline to the 28th, so we'll make sure that it's up there, so that when they see it, they'll have links to it, where they can go and find the RFP for the nonprofits. Then the next day, we don't want to confuse people with the nonprofit RFP and then the small business, so one will be the 19th, the next day, the 20th.
Okay, there was also some talk about being affiliated with a board member or something of that nature. People who apply. A conflict of
We scratched all that, we
interest.
scratched
We
all that.
scratched that?
We took all that out.
Okay, okay, good.
And I think there's a competing, because I know that as you're doing that, the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council is also sending out their request for proposals too for the $1.1 million they got. So it's a whole lot of stuff that's going to be hitting.
And marking was a big thing, and thank you, Commissioner Stewart. So do we already have those made up and we're ready to hit the button? We're not gonna make them up on the
We're working
19th?
on those.
Okay, just as long as you're ready to go.
And also, we were talking targeted emails to different groups that nonprofits work with within the community, and then same thing with small businesses too, in addition to the promotional.
Are you gonna have the frequently asked questions? Because
So there will be a workshop, and that held for the nonprofit RFP will be February.
No, January.
I'm sorry, January, y'all. January 24th, Monday, at 3:30 to 5:30, and that'll be something they will log in.
Sally, I agree with you. I know what Commissioner Keeling said. That's not enough time. We need to start getting some information out, because you only have from the 19th, when it goes out, till Monday. That's a short window to get that message out and then participate. Can we start at least advertising the nonprofit? Because
that would be
Well, you know, and I would tell you,
tomorrow or Monday.
to me, the small businesses, it needs to go as fast. Nonprofits look for,
change.
they always looking for grants, so they'll find it. Those small businesses, they the ones who've been calling about being on the, is it out yet, or, the mayor even had somebody calling the other day.
I think you're gonna have to address that 501c3 and 12 deal or
we took
17.
that out.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta.
We took that out.
Nonprofits are eligible, they just gotta go through the other nonprofit.
Oh, I thought that was a federal issue.
Okay. We went through the final rule. And the attorney with legal review.
You guys were so definite yesterday.
Well,
You said it with a lot of confidence, I believed you.
That's the information I was reading. All right, that's no information, that's the updated stuff. Where's Mr. Todd with the IT, the updated IT people? Okay. Yes, ma'am, Madam.
before we go to the monthly reports, Vicki has something short to update the board on. It's very short.
Keep my eye on Vicky be,
She did.
some stuff on there. Thank you, Mr. Zeus.
And this is different. As far as I know, it hasn't happened at the county. Okay, so, do you remember the fiscal year 2021 financial report, presented it in December? So I gotta do some background in order to get you where we are today. So the Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting is awarded by the Government Finance Officers Association, the GFOA. So for our fiscal year 20 financial report, we submitted our application for the award, and normally we receive notification about the award between like the months of May and August. And for this one, we didn't. And so we continued to follow up, and their response was that they they had a backlog because they were having staffing issues because of COVID. And so we went ahead and we released our report without having that certification for fiscal year 20 in the book. So the day after we presented the financial report, we received our notification from GFOA, and we did receive the award for fiscal year 20. When they submit the certificate to us, every year they have comments from their review. And so when we have those comments, we can, like comments for suggested changes. So we take those comments and we compare them to our upcoming financial report so that we can make any changes on areas where we may have done something wrong. So this year, there was a comment about needing to make a change that was significant to them, and the change has to do with a dollar amount that we posted in the government-wide financial statements, in the statement in that position. So there's a difference of like $32 million in net investment in capital assets. So we understated net investment in capital assets and overstated our unrestricted net position. And so I talked with the auditors. I told them that I wanted to fix it to make it right. And so we have to reissue. And so I guess as far as all of the steps that are involved, we've already worked with our auditors to get updated reports. So all of that is done. The staff are reviewing them today. And actually we've been doing reviews most of the week. The auditors have to send it back to their partners for review. And so the report is going to be dated tomorrow, with tomorrow's date. So after that, we reprint the books. We reprint the books. We currently have, like I have on mine right now, I have bad on it. The one that's on our website right now is this one. When we have the full, the corrected one tomorrow, we upload that on our website. Then I think we need to come back to you, to the board, for y'all to accept the revised report. And so I'd like to do that at the February agenda session meeting.
You gonna upload it tomorrow?
I wouldn't upload it thinking.
No, the only reason I said, and somebody has a question, do you have it to be uploaded?
We will. We already have the version that we've been reviewing. It just has to go to their audit partners.
Okay.
So
I
they
was
can
trying to
sign
see if
off.
we could do it today, and that would let you upload it. But I think Commissioner Keith has a perplexed look on his face.
Can you just break it down and like?
Like how to,
Yeah,
What it means.
I mean, what happened?
okay, so
Did you screw
we
up?
changed, I'll take full responsibility
Okay.
for it. I'll take full responsibility for it. We changed, we changed auditors.
Right.
Yep.
And so fiscal year 20 was the first year that Elliott Davis audited us.
Okay, you got 1 sentence left.
No, I can't do it in 2 sentences. I can't.
You lost me.
But it doesn't
So
cost
they-
you much.
they
I mean,
put
it
it-
just, you put
no,
it in
it's
the
a-
wrong
it's a-
line item. You overestimated one, underestimated the other.
We didn't include an amount.
Right.
It's actually the amount of school debt on our books. We were supposed to take that out of one of the amounts. And we were supposed to exclude it, and we didn't. And so it was just,
But it's just, I'm not clear.
it doesn't affect our fund, it doesn't affect our fund balance, it doesn't affect, our revenues and expenditures. It's all on, the statement in that position in the fund balance section, one line between another.
So we got a lot of staff time doing a clerical change, right?
The time involved is with these reports.
Yeah. I mean, it's
On $1 amount shown in one area carries through
Everything,
into
all the way.
multiple pages. And so that's why we need.
That was the
Okay.
whole group.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Sorry you had to go through that.
There are the monthly updates. Does anybody have any questions about the monthly updates? Have you had an opportunity to review them? They were sent to you in advance, and you have them on your computer. I know everybody reviewed them, so if no one has any questions, now, I didn't know what that project updates was, but hopefully that was the ones we did up here. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor?
Unanimous.
We are adjourned.